Good morning, everyone. The quarterly meeting of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council will now come to order. Good morning. How's everybody today? I would like to introduce our newly appointed council members. They are Dr. Karen Zhu. Is it Zhu? Aiden Blunsky. Gary Williams. And Robert Smith. We also have some special guests, Jude Boynton. Frank Macaluso and Dr. Meta. Good morning. I will go over our virtual protocol. For committee members and members of the public attending in person, please raise your hand to speak and wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking. To help the meeting run smoothly, please keep side conversations to a minimum and comments related to the topic we are discussing. For those committee members who are attending virtually, remember you must be on camera and have your first and last name showing to be counted toward our quorum. Please keep microphones muted unless called upon by the chair. Electronically raise your hand to speak and wait to be called on by the chair. For attendees, electronically raise your hand to request to speak. Once recognized by the chair, your microphone will be turned on. After speaking, the microphone will be returned to mute. Also, the Q&A is to only be used by those needing an ADA accommodation to participate in the meeting. Public comment will not be accepted by the Q&A except to those individuals who requested the accommodation. As for order, committee members in person and virtually will be allowed to speak first. Public members in person will then be called on, followed by public participating virtually who have their hands raised. Comments in the Q&A and chat will be addressed last. As with all hybrid meetings, it can be difficult to keep track of all those wanting to speak in person and virtually, so please be patient. All comments and questions from committee members and the public may be limited should we run into time constraints, so please keep that in mind. Also, comments about a person's character will not be allowed. Finally, members of the public will have the opportunity to provide public comment before each vote and during designated public comment periods. Public members will be given one opportunity to speak for each agenda item and will be limited to 2 minutes. The chair may also use their discretion to determine if comments will be accepted outside of those times. We will now have a moment of silence for one of our council members who recently passed away, Ms. Lauren Womack. Thank you. Lauren was a council member for about 2.5 years, and she did tremendous work. She was a great advocate for those in Louisiana and a great friend to everyone here. And she also was given the Patsy Barrett Memorial Gold Award this year through the Governor's Gold Awards. She received that. Thank you. Ms. Ebony Haven, could you please call the roll for attendance?
Dr. Barry Vecchio.
Here.
Ms. Bayham.
Here.
Mr. Bennett.
Here.
Mr. Billings. Mr. Blunsky. Ms. Crane.
Here.
Mr. Ennis. Ms. Hagan.
Here.
Ms. Hano.
Here.
Ms. Harmon. Ms. Jordan.
Here.
Ms. Nguyen. Mr. Piontek. Mr. Rocca.
Here.
Mr. Smith. You have to unmute, Robbie.
Here.
Ms. Stewart. Mr. Taylor.
Here.
Ms. Washington.
Here.
Ms. Webb.
Here.
Dr. Wilson, Mr. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Shu. Ms. Gonzalez. You have a quorum.
Thank you.
Oh, Miss Aduli, Miss Kelly Aduli.
I'm here. Thank you. At this time, we will have Ebony read the mission statement and the Browns.
Actually, Renata's gonna.
Oh, Ms. Renata.
Renata's gonna read the mission statement today.
All right, the mission statement is to increase independence, self-determination, productivity, integration, and inclusion for Louisianans with developmental disabilities by engaging in advocacy, capacity building, and systems change.
And our ground rules, our members must be recognized by the chair before speaking, be respectful of each other's opinions, break for 10 minutes every 1.5 hours, discuss council business in a responsible manner, except as necessary, restrict the use of electronic communication, i.e. texting during council and committee meetings, silence or turn off all cell phones. The mission statement is posted at every meeting, be on time for meetings, no alphabets and side conversations are kept to a minimum, done quietly and restricted to the subject at hand.
Thank you. The next item of business is the approval of the meeting summary. A draft of the October 17th meeting summary was distributed. The summary will not be read unless requested by a member. Are there any corrections to be made? If there is no objection, the meeting summary is now approved as distributed. Hearing none, the meeting summary is approved. The next item of business is the chair's report. The executive committee met yesterday and had one recommendation to present to the council. We discussed the council's ad hoc committee list, including the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and the Grievance Ad hoc Committee. The DEI committee's purpose was to establish an official council position on DEI, which is now posted on the council's website. And the committee recommended DEI training for council members and staff, which was accomplished in 2024. Therefore, the committee has this recommendation to offer the council's consideration. Devin? The executive committee recommends discharge of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Ad hoc Committee and offers this recommendation to the full council for consideration. The Grievance Ad hoc Committee, however, has not met since prior to COVID-19 and never accomplished their purpose, which was to establish a grievance policy. Therefore, staff recommends keeping this committee but reestablish the membership and having the committee meet after the legislative session ends in June. And if any current members like to volunteer for this committee, you can give me your name or Ms.
We need to go through the motion.
Oh,
We need to go through
apologize.
The motion before we move on.
Move on to that? Okay. That's fine. Yeah. So the motion is we recommend discharging the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Ad hoc Committee and offers the recommendation for the council to consider. Because this motion is coming from a committee, it does not require a second. Is there any discussion from council members? Any public comment? So the question is whether we recommend discharge of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Ad hoc Committee, and if we can have a roll call vote. If you're in favor of the motion, your name is called, say yes. If opposed, say no. And if abstained, say abstain, please.
Ms. Kelly Aduli?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly Aduli, yes. Dr. Baravecchio?
Abstain.
Dr. Baravecchio abstains. Ms. Bayham?
Abstain.
Ms. Bayham abstains. Mr. Bennett?
Abstain.
Mr. Bennett abstains. Mr. Billings? Mr. Blunsky? Ms. Crane?
Abstain.
Ms. Crane abstains. Mr. Ennis? Ms. Hagan,
Yes.
Ms. Hagan, yes. Ms. Hano,
Yes.
Ms. Hano, yes. Ms. Harmon, Ms. Jordan,
Yes.
Ms. Jordan, yes. Ms. Nguyen, Mr. Piante, Mr. Rocca,
Yes.
Mr. Rocca, yes. Mr. Smith,
Abstain.
Mr. Smith abstains. Ms. Stewart, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Taylor, yes. Mr. Taylor, yes. Ms. Washington,
Yes.
Ms. Washington, yes. Ms. Webb,
Yes.
Ms. Webb, yes. Dr. Wilson, Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Ms. Shu, Ms. oh, never mind.
It's 9 yeas, 5 abstentions.
9 yeas, 5 abstentions.
The yeses have it and the motion is adopted. Thank you, members. So since the grievance ad hoc committee has not met since prior to COVID-19, they never accomplished their purpose. And their purpose was to establish a grievance policy. We recommend that we keep this committee, but just ask that, members meet after the legislative session. And then that would be ending in June. And if you would like to volunteer for this committee, you can definitely contact me or Ebony, if you'd like to serve on that committee. The committee also received an update on the 2025 legislative advocacy agenda. In October, the council added protecting the Louisiana Department of Health from cuts as one of the 2025 legislative advocacy agenda items. Originally, Louisiana was facing a fiscal cliff with an anticipated budget deficit of 400 to 700 million for the fiscal year 2026. The legislature met in November to address tax reform, and it is believed the special session addressed the fiscal cliff. However, actions taken will have consequences in subsequent fiscal years. The administration is also looking at government efficiencies, which will likely result in a reduced budget for LDH. Therefore, the council will continue to advocate for protection of disability services to ensure the legislator is aware of how important these services are and what impacts the disabilities community will face should services not be protected. Lastly, the committee conducted the third quarterly eval for our executive director. Everything was very positive and the ED and staff are doing great. And the retreat was amazing. Thank you. The full council will evaluate the executive director at the April 2025 meeting, which is her anniversary date. The staff is working on updating the survey according to the new policies and procedures that we adopted at the October meeting for the evaluation of the executive director. And the new survey will be sent out to council members prior to the April meeting. Ma'am?
Is, I don't think this is in our bylaws, but is there time slot, like a week, a day, 2 days, 3 days, or like how is it like? Oh my God, sorry, y'all. Is it specified in the bylaws how far in advance before the April meeting to send out the survey?
It's not specified in the bylaws, but the goal is to get it to you guys by April 1st. Since the meeting isn't until April 30th and May 1st, you got the whole
May
council.
1st.
Yes,
Okay.
April
that's
30th and May 1st.
Gonna be different.
The goal will be to get the survey to the full council because the executive committee will have to take into consideration all of their feedback and survey responses before the April meeting.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, everyone. The next item of business is the executive director's report. The chair recognizes Ebony Hagan for the report.
Good morning, everybody. If you look in your package, my executive director's report is on the gray paper in the package. I'm just gonna hit a couple of highlights, and if you guys have any questions, I'll Happy to answer. For your program performance report, which is something we talked about at your council retreat, the evaluation and reporting, that the council staff do, there was a change in their reporting software. The feds, didn't want to use the software that we were using. And so they had to come up with a new way for us to do reporting. They have finally come up with that, but our PPR, or our program performance report, that was initially due December 30th is now due March 28th. And the council staff will make sure that's submitted, timely. Council membership, the chair has already welcomed our new members who were officially appointed on January 17th. That's Dr. Karen Chu, Aiden Blunsky, Mr. Gary Williams with the Office of Adult and Aging, Services, and Robert Smith. And we are still, awaiting 4 more appointments, and we anticipate those appointments will be made before, the April meeting. Just a quick update with LaCan. The chair has already given you guys an update on the 2025 legislative advocacy agenda. But I just want to make sure that I mention that the legislative roundtable schedule has been released, and registration is now open for each regional roundtable. And so I want to encourage each of our council members to get involved with your LaCan leaders. If they are scheduling legislative visits right now, if you guys can get on board with the LaCan leaders and give them your schedules when you're available so that you can attend those legislative visits. Just try to become more involved with LaCan and your advocacy agenda that you approved back in October. We want to make sure that those items are pushed forward and that we succeed this legislative session with those 2 items that are on your agenda. So we just encourage you guys to get involved, attend your regional roundtables. The schedule's out. You can register. You can get with your LaCan leaders. We're going to be pushing out action alerts. We encourage you guys to respond to those action alerts and just become more involved. We will try to send out things as early as possible. We realize sometimes we can't send out things early enough where you guys have enough time to schedule time off from work or whatever, but if you can, please attend some yellow shirt days at the Capitol this session as well. We would love to see our council members become more involved and just pushing your agenda forward for the 2025 session. And I think that's all the highlights I have for my executive director's report. If anybody has any questions about anything else that's listed in the report, I'm happy to answer personally.
Any questions from council members? The report requires no action and it will be placed on file. The next item of business is our committee reports. The first report from the Self-Determination Community Inclusion Committee. The chair recognizes Brooke Stewart. Is she?
It's gonna be Ms. Kelly.
Oh, Ms. Kelly.
I point in the agenda, the budget report is made.
Oh, the budget.
Yes.
Oh, I missed the whole thing.
I just don't want to skip over it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. So we're gonna go over the budget report next. I apologize about that. Ms. Ebony.
Yes, so the budget report was right behind my executive director's report. And if you guys, once Stephanie pulls it up on the screen. So last year I went to an executive director's leadership summit and we kind of discussed how different councils present their budgets. And so if you'll notice, the budget is sort of shorter now than it has been in previous council meetings. Just because we want to give you guys the big picture instead of getting down to the weeds. I think in the last budget reports I had like equipment rentals. And you guys, I mean, we have a Xerox machine. So, I mean, we don't need to get into the weeds of that. As long as we are staying within the budget that you guys have set for those different categories, I don't think we need to talk about our insurance and what we're paying LDH for contracting services and all of that. Now, if anybody has any questions about those things, I am happy to answer, but I kind of want to give you guys the big picture, just to make sure you guys are aware of how we're staying on track with the funding. If you guys have any questions about anything, I do want to kind of mention operating services. we do pay a fee to our national association, the National Association for Councils on Developmental Disabilities, or NACDD. We do pay fees for that. The Director of Technical Assistance, who came down to do your retreat on Tuesday, she's a part of that fee. So that fee did come out, which is why that number is a little elevated. But we're in our second quarter as far as the state budget goes. If you look under operating services, Jill, in the second quarter, we spent 29,000. So I just want to kind of point that out because the fees are about $11,000 that we pay every year for NACDD. So that's why that cost is a little elevated. And as you can see, most of our budget goes to our contractual activities that you guys put in your action plan. So if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer them. If you are interested in anything specifically, I can answer that, but that's the budget report, and if anybody has any questions, I can.
You have a hand raised,
Who's that?
online.
Oh, go ahead.
It's Ms. Rosalind Hyman.
Go ahead, Ms. Rosalind.
Does that mean, is it for this year? With all of this being new for this year, or is this from last year?
Hey, Rosalind, so this is from this year. So the budget report, our budget is on the state fiscal year, so it goes from July 1st to June 30th. So technically, we're in the second quarter. So as you'll see, like the first quarter is there and then all the months in the second quarter. So it's for, those months are in 2024, but it's for the full state fiscal year, which was from July 1st, 2024, and it'll run all the way through June 30th, 2025. So it crosses over years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it do.
Okay.
Again, you have two numbers in red.
Mhm.
Does that mean that we are paid, that they paid us as well in that? Because it's saying 162 twice. So they paid us again?
Right, we got a refund for some supplies that we didn't receive. So that's why they refunded us $162.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
Thanks. That's what I wanted to find out as well.
Thank you, Ms. Rosalind. Any
Thank-
other questions? Anything else, Ms. Ebony?
No, unless anybody had
Any other questions? Right. The report requires no action and it will be placed on file. The next item of business is our committee reports. The first report is from the Self-Determination Community Inclusion Committee. The chair recognizes Ms. Cherie Aduli for the report.
The Self-Determination Community Inclusion Committee met yesterday and has two recommendations for the council's consideration. First, the committee discussed activities to recommend the planning ad hoc committee for inclusion into the council's fiscal year 2026 action plan under goals 1 and 2. This plan will begin October of 2025. The motion was the Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee recommends the Planning Ad Hoc Committee to consider the following activities for inclusion into the fiscal year 26 action plan and offers this recommendation to the full council for consideration. Preventative screenings for women's health to be added to activity 2.3.1. Reword activity 2.1.2 to read as follows. Create and provide information targeted toward high school aged individuals and or parents on puberty, sex education, sexual development, and awareness. Training for home and community-based workers to be added to activity 2.2. Next, the committee discussed concepts and ideas and proposed to the council consideration, including to its 5-year plan, which runs through fiscal year 2027 through 2031. Our committee considered the
Should we-
following,
Sorry, they gotta take up that motion and then you can jump to the
oh,
next.
sorry.
Sorry about that.
So it is moved that the recommendations from the Planning Ad hoc Committee consider that the activities for inclusion in the fiscal year 26 action plan and offers this recommendation below. Because it's coming from a committee, it does not require a second. Are there any discussion from council members? Any public comment?
Ms. Rosalind has her hand raised.
Ms. Rosalind?
Yeah, I must have hit the button too quick.
That's okay, Ms. Rosalind. You have 3 minutes.
Telling Donna her volleyball rolling around on you.
That was her?
Yeah.
I think she,
I don't think she.
Yeah.
made
Oh,
it.
okay. All right. So the question is on, us to consider the following activities for inclusion in the fiscal year 26 action plan, and we offer this recommendation. Can we have a roll call vote, Ms. Stephanie?
A vote of yes is that you all are in favor of the motion. A vote of no is that you're not in favor of the motion. Ms. Aduli?
Yes.
Ms. Aduli, yes. Dr. Barry Vecchio?
Yes.
Dr. Barry Vecchio, yes. Ms. Bayham?
Yes.
Ms. Bayham, yes. Mr. Bennett?
yes.
Mr. Bennett, yes. Mr. Billings? Mr. Blanchky? Ms. Crane?
Yes.
Ms. Crane, yes. Mr. Ennis?
Yes.
Mr. Ennis, yes. Ms. Hagan?
Yes.
Ms. Hagan, yes. Ms. Hano?
Yes.
Ms. Hano, yes. Ms. Harmon? Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Ms. Jordan, yes. Ms. Nguyen? Mr. Piante? Mr. Rocca?
Yes.
Mr. Rocca, yes. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, yes. Ms. Stewart? Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor, yes. Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. Washington, yes. Ms. Webb?
Yes.
Ms. Webb, yes. Dr. Wilson? Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Ms. Sue? 15 nays.
Okay, and the yeses have it, and the motion is adopted. Thank you, members. Ms. Aduli, you can continue.
Next, the committee discussed concepts, ideas, and proposals for the council to consider, including in its next 5-year plan, which runs through fiscal year 2027 through 2031. Our committee considered the following areas of emphasis: quality assurance, health, housing and transportation, recreation, and formal community supports. Members felt the council should focus on these 6 areas of emphasis. Motion. The Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee recommends the 5-year planning ad hoc committee to consider the following items for inclusion into the fiscal year 2027-2031 5-year plan, and offers this recommendation to the full council for consideration. Areas of emphasis and possible implementation strategies. Transportation. Legislation for prevention, safety measures for individuals with mobility issues or wheelchair bound as it relates to vehicular accidents. FMLA style leave for parents with children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Medicaid to cover electric and standard wheelchairs. Abuse and neglect training. Healthcare coverage for direct service workers.
Thank you. It is moved and we recommend, the council recommends that the 5-year planning and ad hoc committee consider the following items for inclusion in our fiscal year 2027, 2031 5-year plan, and offers the following recommendations for consideration. Because the motion is coming from a committee, it does not require a second. Are there any discussions from council members? Ms. June?
What did? I mean, this might be, I'm overthinking and the goal of this is a question for you maybe, but what if I don't like the wording of something?
We would offer an amendment to change the wording.
Oh, Brittany.
Just a
That's
clarifying statement, I guess. Is it, so what you're coming up with in these motions are just very broad, general ideas. You're not trying to wordsmith how it's supposed to look in the plan. So as long as the wording captures what that target area or concept is that you're looking for, then when we get into the planning committees and the 5-year planning committee, that's when you start tweaking the language to be very specific of what you're looking to do. So it's not meant to be the perfect language. It's really just capturing a topic.
That,
Then the committee will be
Any other questions? Does the public have any comment? So the question is on recommending the 5-year planning ad hoc committee. Consider the following items for inclusion in our fiscal year 2027 to 2031 5-year plan and offers the following recommendations for the full council to consider. Ebony, can you have a roll call?
A vote for yes is that you're in favor of these concepts. A vote for no is that you're not. Mr. Dooley,
Yes.
Mr. Dooley, yes. Dr. Baravecchio,
Abstain.
Dr. Baravecchio abstains. Ms. Bayham,
Yes.
Ms. Bayham, yes. Mr. Bennett,
abstaining.
Mr. Bennett abstains. Mr. Billings, Mr. Blunsky, Ms. Crane,
Yes.
Ms. Crane, yes. Mr. Ennis,
Abstain.
Mr. Ennis abstains. Ms. Hagan,
Abstain.
Ms. Hagan abstains. Ms. Hano,
yes,
Ms. Hano, yes. Ms. Harmon, Ms. Jordan,
Yes.
Ms. Jordan, yes. Ms. Nguyen, Mr. Piontek, Mr. Rocca,
Yes.
Mr. Rocca, yes. Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Smith, yes. Ms. Stewart, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Taylor abstains. Ms. Washington,
Yes.
Ms. Washington, yes. Ms. Webb,
Yes.
Ms. Webb, yes. Dr. Wilson, Mr. Williams,
Abstain.
Mr. Williams abstains. Ms. Shu. We have 9 yeas, 6 abstentions.
The yeses have it and the motion is adopted. Thank you, everyone. Do you have anything else, Mr. Dooley?
Yes, we were unable to discuss the non-contractual and contractual activities under goals 1 and 2 of our plan due to time constraints. One very important update I would like to bring to the attention of the council is that we were unable to discuss yesterday is the LaCan and Families Helping Families are currently in collaboration to host regional legislative roundtables around the state of Louisiana. These will be held virtually each year. They have been finalized and being shared across all council platforms and include information on how to register and participate. I would like to encourage all council members to register and participate in your regional roundtable. LaCan leaders are also in the process of scheduling and completing formal legislative visits with key committee members to discuss this year's advocacy agenda created by the council. Council members, please reach out to your regional LaCan leader to get more information and ways to get involved and participate in legislative visits in your area. For all other details and updates on the initiatives and goals 1 and 2, I encourage you to review the status of planned activities document in your meeting packet. You can also reach out to staff if you have any questions about particular initiatives.
Thank you, Mr. Dooley. The next item of business is the report from the Education Employment Committee. The chair recognizes Ms. Renata Washington for the report.
Thanks, Christy. The Education and Employment Committee met yesterday. Does not have any recommendations to present to the council. We received a lot of great updates from LRS and LDOE. The committee discussed activities to recommend to the Planning Ad Hoc Committee for inclusion in the council's 2026 action plan under Goal 3, which will begin October 2025. The Education and Employment Committee would like to recommend the Planning Ad Hoc Committee consider the following activities for inclusion in the federal year 2026 action plan and offers this recommendation to the council for consideration. First one is advocate for more services through LRS due to high caseloads. The next one, support LDOE responsive actions to the audit report with respect to seclusion and restraint and to promote inclusion in education.
So it is moved that the council, look at the recommendations from the planning and ad hoc committee and consider the following activities for inclusion in the FY 2026 action plan and offer the following recommendations for the council to consider. Because this motion is coming from a committee, it does not require a second. Are there any discussion from council members? Any public comment? So the question is on us recommending the planning and ad hoc committee to consider the following activities to include in our FY 2026 action plan and offer the following recommendations to the council. Evan?
There is a hand that
Oh,
that
I'm
was
sorry.
raised while you were talking. Do you want to take the comment?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine, yes. Who is it?
Rosalind.
Oh, Miss Rosalind?
Now, alright, are we going to do anything new for this year until like 2026? Planning out for this year going into next year, or are we going to run it for the same plans, or what are we going to do even with that?
I can answer quickly. Rosalind, so right now, the council has one activity under education and employment, one initiative, and that's the transition training. So the planning committee will discuss the recommendations from the education and employment committee that they made yesterday, that the council is about to vote on. So these are new activities that they can potentially
In the meeting.
action plan for next year.
So it's the same is for what I'm hearing. And that, cause I want, to see, I don't want to miss out on anything up on that because, if I do miss anything, that's why I'm trying to catch up from last night for what's the agreement to it.
So these are new activities. These will be new things that they're considering for FY 26 for the next action plan that starts October 1st.
All right, so October 1st, does that mean it's going from October to what's going to be the ending date from that, October 1st?
So the FY 26 action plan goes from October 1st, 2025 to September 30th, 2026.
So is it going to go into November? To like November, from October 1st to November 1st?
No, from October 1st to September 30th of 2026, the following year.
Okay.
Yes.
See, that's why I'm asking this question because, it's a little hard to kind of keep up because since none of us has our packets because of the snow that we had last week. So, that's, pretty much why I didn't read up on it in that, on the FY.
And we're gonna make sure we mail your packet as soon as we get back to the office, Rosalind, I promise.
Yeah, I know we have to do a catch up and everything on our package, so I do understand that.
Any other questions? Thank you, Miss Rosalind.
All right.
That's it. Okay. Ms. Ebony?
A vote for yes is that you agree with the motion stated on the screen. A vote of no is that you don't agree. Ms. Dooley,
Yes.
Ms. Dooley, yes. Dr. Baravecchio,
Yes.
Dr. Baravecchio, yes. Ms. Bayham,
Abstain.
Ms. Bayham abstains. Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett, yes. Mr. Billings, Mr. Blunsky, Ms. Crane,
Yes.
Ms. Crane, yes. Mr. Ennis,
Abstain.
Mr. Ennis abstains. Ms. Hagan,
Yes.
Ms. Hagan, yes. Ms. Hano, Ms. Hano abstains. Ms. Harmon, Ms. Jordan,
Abstain.
Ms. Jordan abstains. Ms. Nguyen, Mr. Piontek, Mr. Rocco,
Yes.
Mr. Rocco, yes. Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Smith, yes. Ms. Stewart, Mr. Taylor, abstain. Mr. Taylor abstains. Ms. Washington,
Yes.
Ms. Washington, yes. Ms. Webb,
Yes.
Ms. Webb, yes. Dr. Wilson, Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Ms. Shu. 10 yeas, 5 abstentions.
Right. The yeses have it and the motion is adopted. Thank you, members. Ebony, who is doing the Act 378?
Me.
Ms. Judy?
Oh, wait, I think there's still more on that.
Oh, there's still more? I'm sorry.
All right, unfortunately, due to time constraints, the committee doesn't have any concepts to offer. So we would like to open the floor now for recommendations of concepts for goal 3, education and employment.
Does anybody have any recommendations? Yes, ma'am.
Advocate for universal pre-K in early intervention training for early childhood providers to support students with disabilities. Can you make it bigger, Brendan?
Hold on, I'm trying to remember.
Okay, sorry.
What you're saying.
And then to, early intervention training for early childhood providers to support students with.
Can you just say the whole thing over? I'm sorry.
Early intervention training for early
No,
childhood.
no, no, the whole thing, like start advocating for
Okay.
universal
I
pre-K.
would like to make a motion that we amend to advocate for universal pre-K, which is one motion or one recommendation. Sorry. And then the other item would be to advocate for early intervention training for early childhood providers to support students with disabilities. Beginning. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I make a suggestion? Instead of making a motion now and then somebody else making a motion, can we get all of the recommendations and then somebody make
Oh.
one motion?
Yeah,
for
I
to recommend
think-
all of the recommendations?
Okay, sorry.
Any other recommendations? Council members? Yes.
So a big issue with schools is they like to push students with disabilities out or kick them out and push them on the curb for like homebound or whatnot. So are there any ideas on how we could stop that or make the schools accommodate and keep the students with disabilities?
They tend to let them calm down at home. I think is that right? Is that what you're talking about, Vivian?
Well, yeah, they will, not only will they just like send them home from a school day when they like have the situation, but they also will literally permanently say, hey, your student should go to homebound. So,
Oh, so not just him before that day, okay, never mind.
No, I think she's saying if there was repeated offenses, they would, put them to home bond. Mr. Eric?
I kinda understand what she's saying because when my child was going to school, they recommended that it'd be best to put her in homeschooling instead of having her in the public of the school because of medical issues or because of this or that. And I strongly recommend that she stay in the school system around other kids so she can be able to be around other kids and communicate with kids. So yes, if that's a way we can stop that, where the schools could stop not trying to push it where they push the people that's disabled into the homes that's more non-physical, that can't move, that can't. That would be something that.
So Mr. Eric, Ms. Vivian, would it be like and provide an alternative placement besides homebound due to behaviors?
no,
No.
I do not want an alternative school or
No,
an
not that.
alternative placement for these students to be sent to. I want them to be included in the schools
Yes.
with all of the other students.
Yes.
And not be like kicked out permanently for health reasons
Yes,
or
okay.
otherwise.
That's what I'm, sorry.
Again, and to, I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Taylor?
Again, I agree with her with that. I mean, and another thing that if we could stop this, not just isolate them in one area. I mean, they need to be around other students, not just disabled students. I mean, students where they could communicate with other students.
Social skills.
So it's the same.
Yes, Mr.
You know, from my experience, like when I was in school, I was like one of the higher functioning people in my school and I felt secluded. I felt isolated because, you know, I didn't had regular classes, like I should have took in more regular classes when I was in school. And I really think, we're more capable than.
Thank you.
So
Yes,
can I just for clarification purposes, I'm trying to, because these are broad concepts that you guys are trying to come up with. So advocacy around seclusion is that what I heard Mr. Taylor saying, but then I don't know how to word what you're saying, Vivian. Do you have any suggestions, Meredith?
Yeah, so let me offer some support. I appreciate everything that we're talking about. Totally agree with what you're saying. I'm wondering if what we're really, maybe the term, because common language and terminology matters, right? We talked a lot yesterday about seclusion and what that means in terms of seclusion and restraint law. Perhaps here, what we're really talking about are placement decisions, educational placement decisions. And that is a continuum, right, of options. So I'm wondering if, and certainly want to hear your response, feedback, if this is perhaps about awareness, education about what these placement options look like, what they mean, just kind of thinking through this alongside you guys.
Could we maybe add in-school strategies? Like things that could be done within the school before they result to a change in placement or homebound? Vivian?
Yes, but I also don't want the school to be able to push students out and get out of educating them, if that makes any sense.
So Vivian, I'm sorry, Jamar. So I guess, are you suggesting that the parents aren't having the appropriate decision-making to participate, whether or not their children is is to receive homebound services versus strategizing, going through the steps to make sure their IEPs are addressing or the 504 plans are addressing the specific behaviors or concerns? Are you saying that the parents are kind of ushered out of the decision-making process?
Well, that as well, but the school, if something looks like too much for them or they just don't want to deal with it, they tell the parent that the child should go somewhere else, and I don't think that's right. And I also don't want students to be gypped of their education in a way just because they're disabled.
Okay, so I think the root of what you're saying is that parents should retain the decision-making, right? Whether or not the child should be homebound, or at least spend certain periods of time in homebound situations. Because I can tell you sometimes in my private practice, I advocated for homebound service because that's what the student wanted, at least for a certain period of time. So some situations it's ideal because the parents are telling me this is what my child needs. So I think maybe if there is some controls placed on what you're suggesting, that parents, students kind of lead the way in the decision making. Maybe that's something that can help provide some kind of remedy to your concern. Just putting that out there.
That, and then like being able to go back to school when it's time and the student's ready.
Yeah, so it's not an infinite time. So what gives sometimes it can be a week or 2 weeks or because I know that if it's homebound, sometimes you got to provide services that narrowly tailored around that, like paras, certain things that still has to happen. So maybe that's something to maybe kind of work in. Just a suggestion.
Dr. Mehta?
Yes, ma'am. I think what Jamar is alluding to make a lot of sense. It should be spelled out in the accommodation, the IEP. So if it's spelled out in the IEP and the accommodation, so the school can just go and look back in the accommodation, which is being provided by professionals, right? So, this type of students, right, can be, right, after school with everybody else, right? So I think if it's spelled out, they don't have a way out of not providing that service to the student.
Mr. Taylor?
I'm saying like this, hey, why provide a homebound situation for a student that's have equal opportunity to be out there just as like everybody else? I mean, I feel like that's isolating a child into a home that they need to be out too. They need to see too. Because when I was a parent, they was like, look, this is the best thing for her because we don't have the ability to take care of her, the ability to do this and do that. We don't have people trained to handle these kids that's got medical issues that needs to be taken care of, but then we need people trained instead of just pushing them in the home and saying, okay, I don't want this. Let's send them home because of the ability. No.
I had one more piece to add because I'm remembering also, and again, right, this is legislation from last year. We just have policy responsive to that coming off of notice of intent. But if you remember revised statute, Act 198 last year, also now requires any changes to IEP, which would include placement. You have to properly prior notice parents before you make those decisions, include them in those decisions. So I'm not saying we're perfect by any means yet, but I'm certainly in the discussion, right, to say, what have we done, how, and that was really stakeholder advocacy, that piece of legislation, I think, kind of, speaking to some of this same issue too, to where changes in placement and really restrictive placement requires you to prior notice parents, have a proper meeting, really sort of codified that in law, and then we placed into policy, but certainly. So I just wanted to bring that back up too, just to keep that in mind as we think about next steps in this.
That, and then I understand the concept behind homebound, but it's only 4 hours of education a week. It's not a good decision, and the reason schools usually tell parents like to do homebound is either because the school has created an inappropriate situation where they have not accommodated the student properly and created a harmful environment for them, or they don't want to accommodate the student period and they're just trying to like push them aside. They will also try and get them to go do homeschooling instead or no schooling.
I'm not sure, but listening to Mr. Eric and Ms. Vivian were saying, is it maybe that you guys are looking for advocacy for funding to hire and train school staff on how to support medically fragile students so that they can be educated in this restricted environment?
And
That
maybe
would
give them
incorporate that placement.
more hours of education if needed, is that right?
I don't want to advocate for a homebound, and then it's not that the schools don't have the money to accommodate these students, it's that the schools won't accommodate these students.
Is what we have on the screen appropriate? Is what we have advocacy for awareness training for parents and school staff around in-school strategies concerning educational placement decisions rather than homebound? Okay. Any other ideas or comments? Go ahead, Ms. Rosalind.
Yeah, because I am agreeing for what I'm hearing and that, but I don't know why other schools or even when they have children, they are in like group homes or anything and that, it's like, they don't want to pick up or anything or to spend time with their child or have, like they are saying in that. But there again, why, this is what I don't get. Why do parents do that to their children, especially if you have a daughter or a son in a wheelchair? What can they do? Especially if they have a daughter or a son in a wheelchair, then what? What kind of purpose is that if they don't have a program in any school like that? That's what I want to know.
Thank you, Ms. Rosalind. So we do need a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Renee.
I have a recommendation, that we have more, transitional planning, such as in the, emergency planning for, the caregiver dies, death, those type things to ensure families have something in place, in case, those type of emergencies. I mean, death is real, it happens. Just have, like a will, estate planning, financial, having something, what's next after that, for families. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but just a little bit more in our transitional planning for families. Also, with post-secondary education as well. I feel that that's something that we're lacking in as far as making that connection. Parents do not know what's next after high school. We need to promote that way more than we have. So that they can have an idea of what's next, what it looks like. Does my kid you know, my child does have an opportunity. And what are the opportunities for, my child? If that makes sense. I think we just need to do a little bit more in our transitional planning. And also making a better connection with employers. Like, for example, having like a job fair with those employers that, cater to those with disabilities, and even if they don't, how can we advocate so that they will? Yes. Oh, you.
I really like what you said about the transitional planning, especially when it comes to wills, things like that, but, I do have like a just small concern. So there's two different types of wills you can have. You can have a notarial and a holographic. If there's any, I guess, advocacy in place, because you can do your own will. So I think there should be training just as a safe bet to just kind of instruct people how they could do it themselves, as opposed to, I don't know, if we retain services on people like to do it for them and they mess up, I just don't want any liability to. So it's a great idea, and I think it could work, especially if there's training, because you go on Louisiana state website, they'll tell you what an holographic will is, how to do it. So if you just put that information out, you're good.
Right.
The other thing would be like the power of attorneys and things like that too. So that's another can of worms, but I don't know what else you mean by transitional planning. Could you kind of elaborate a little bit more? If there's anything outside of like the wills and the power of attorneys?
Just, you know, the only example I can give, I'm the only child, my son is the only child. What happens if I die? You know, do I have things in place? Am I aware? Because, you know, sometimes people they're not aware.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying, like, how can we make, you know, as part of transition, can we, you know, just talk about that emergency care plan? What do we do in case of an emergency, specifically, you know, a death of the caregiver? You know, what goes on for, you know, after that? It's not always discussed. I mean, I've gone to different workshops where they're talking about wills and, you know, able counts, stuff like that, but it's not something that's you always hear. It's not something that I guess people like to deal with, because that is a touchy topic, but death is going to happen. And what's next?
If there are any plans, I will volunteer myself to work it to where we're not liable. We get the information out,
Okay.
but doesn't come back on the council, because I'm very passionate about this topic, about this issue.
Me too.
And you can embed natural tutors
Mhm.
in your holographic will. Say, for instance, something happens to a parent, you can name a tutor for a child in case something happens. So your descendant will still receive care, and a person will be named. So
Yes, those type things. That's, you know.
but I think we create ways to where we're not, something goes wrong, it doesn't come back on the council.
Right. I'm just, you know.
But no, I love the
Awareness
thought.
of it.
We'll make it work.
You know, what's out there.
No, it's not talked about, so we need to, that's something to discuss. Dr. Otto, yeah.
Yes, and what's next, right? So, and we heard the report yesterday, and so we're very happy that the state is doing very well from what Ms. Jordan told us yesterday. And one of the reasons that, you know, I'm passionate to be in this council, because I'm in higher education, right? And I teach at Xavier all the time. And we have a lot of these students now going to higher education, and we are not ready. Now, you guys have done a great job from K to 12, but now they are in higher education, and we're not ready for them. And so that is a huge issue for us in higher education, because we don't know what to do. And then so since I'm very passionate about it, I'm like, okay, what can I go to get some help, to help the students or to force the universities to help the students. And so, but yeah, the question is, what's next?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vivian?
I really like the training awareness of transitional planning idea, because if my mom were to die tomorrow, my dad and my grandfather would not know what to do or how to keep, like, my mom does everything. She takes us to the doctor appointments, manages the medicine. She even she knows how to term things and say things that my dad and my grandfather aren't familiar with and wouldn't know what to do in certain situations. And then when I went to college, we were there for a week or two, and then we went off to Paris, but our professors did not know how to handle situations with autistics specifically. So I think transitional planning and awareness would be really helpful in multiple situations, not just a death or an emergency in the family.
So just more training to the collegiate level educators? Is that what you're suggesting?
Not just educators, but family and
Just in general.
any, yeah.
Just.
Brandon?
Just had I guess more of a statement. I guess the Meredith could chime in. So there was Act 689, I think, that passed last session, where it was kind of looking at those options when you're transitioning from youth to
Yeah.
adult. And I know the department was supposed to create kind of some information that was going to be shared. I'm wondering when we talk about things like this and emergencies, or what's going to happen when there's no other natural support, can that be something included in that discussion and those
Yes.
materials, like this type of information? So we might not have to get bogged down in doing it in an action plan if there's a way to try to tap into something you're already creating
Totally.
through
Yeah.
legislation.
So, yes, and we're including that information. We worked with disability rights, couple of other stakeholders to include that information in our procedural safeguards handbook that's gonna go out to families. And that'll be releasing any day now in the next couple of weeks. As all of this policy that we had just come off of notice of intent too, that impacts families, timelines, all of that's gonna be included. It will be included there. To your point, Brenton, I agree. I think we can work together. And to also piggyback on what Dr. Mehta said, because I think we can also do a better job. And what Vivian was saying about educating families and students our students with disabilities who are going to post-secondary in how to access, because a lot of people aren't aware that at every university, there is a student support office, but it's incumbent upon the student to go there, tell them they need support. And so I think, to Vivian's point, educating our families and I think I can do a better job to support you too, through some of what we're doing.
I'm kind of building on what Meredith said, and I know we don't want to wordsmith things too specifically right now, but I think we kind of need to do a note to self about this advocacy training needs to be guided towards the student as well, not just the parents, because in the absence of the parent, then we've got young adults, youth who know a little bit more about their options and, okay, I need to seek out assistance from the Student Disability Services Office, or wait, I remember hearing about, where I can go to. So it's a family event, certainly that transition, it's a family effort. But then at some point, when they turn 18, having just been through that and going through that, the parent gets cut out. And then we're expecting our young adults to make decisions and know where to go. And if we lose that support, if the family gets sick, or, you know, they're in crisis, we need to make sure that we're equipping our young adults to be able to advocate and make decisions that are appropriate for them.
Yeah, very quickly, yeah, to piggyback on what you just said, I can talk to you. You know, without the consent. Once you turn 18, you're in college. It doesn't matter. All right, so that's that's fair part, you know, so, but there are ways to educate the students to say, hey, yes, you can give your mom or your dad, okay, or whoever the caretaker is, allow them to be able to talk to me about your grade while you get that grade in my class. And then, you know, someone that will advocate after you. So once you come to us and you're 18, you know, the parents get cut off unless, you know, that child, well, not child anymore, you know, can give consent. So that's a huge issue. And so a lot of time I've seen these students, like, can you get your parents on the line? Okay. So if you're there in my office and your parent is on the line, all she can do is, or he can do is listening to the conversation, but cannot give feedback. That way I try to manage the situation, but it's just a huge issue.
And I know, Meredith, many colleges want to have more students with disabilities in the post-secondary, but are limited to spots because they don't have the adequate personnel and don't have the adequate training.
That's for the LaPi initiative.
Yes, so that might be something. Jude?
I'd like to add on, you know, the post-secondary educational opportunity is really important, you know, attending Bridge. I mean, we don't have a lot out there for people with disabilities after high school, and I really think we need to equip people after high school with more college opportunities for people with disabilities, you know, and, you know, attending Bridge to Independence, you know, I'm really learning a lot, and I'm really hoping that everyone around, like, hopefully almost across the nation, colleges would step in, you know.
Any other, do we have any public comments? Oh, I'm sorry, restriction, apologize.
I'm trying to put their hands straight up.
He said, don't be shoulder earlier, so I put
Does do LaPi programs have a cap of students? Yes, okay. Okay.
If we have any more comments?
Yes, I want to share that the Family 7 Family Centers that are across the state provide a variety of all of these types of things that I hear you guys are talking about, from the special needs trust, wills, all of that, to, you know, just a variety of topics on transition, transfer of rights, you know, your safeguards, all kinds of things. And a lot of parents don't know that we have special education advisory council that's connected to the school districts, to the special education departments in these school districts. And parents just need to be aware that this is a platform where they can share a lot of their concerns at these special education advisory council meetings. These meetings are, this council was established so that parents can have a voice, so that they can share some of the things that they're concerned about. Bring it to the special education advisory councils in your school district, and then from there, they can start working toward trying to make a change. They take these concerns to the superintendent of the school district, and then they try to bring about change. We're talking about these things at these special education advisory councils. But not just that, when it comes to the discipline, when it comes to the manifestation determination hearings that are held that determine, whether these children will stay in school or have to be, have other placement, these type things. We talk about all of these things. If you have not visited any of these Families Helping Families websites, or if you have not attended their webinars, just Families Helping Families of Greater New Orleans alone have over 100 webinars per fiscal year. And all of the other Families Helping Family Centers have these webinars too. There's such a variety of topics. So what we're trying to do is we're connecting and working closely with the school districts to help develop strategies and things to help support the parents and the students that have disabilities that attend school. We work very closely with the special education directors. The LDOE has a fabulous new family-friendly website where there's extra support there and help. So we just want parents to be able to take advantage of that. And if they don't know how, that's what the Families Helping Family Centers are for. That's why we're here. And we've been here for over 25 years. So what we want you to know is that the Families Helping Family Centers are there to help support. And a lot of the questions that I hear that are going forth, we have the answer for you. We can assist and help. All you have to do is guide those parents through the Families Helping Family Centers, and we're there to help and support, not just from the educational side and providing support and help for students that have IEPs, students need evaluations, if the parents need help and support in getting help preparing for a meeting. If they don't understand school protocol, what they need to do or how they need to seek help, that's what we're there for. And we've been here for a while. So just share with them that there are Families Helping Family Centers across the state. If they move from one area or region to another in the state of Louisiana, they can still get that help and support that they need.
So we do need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So for disability service departments and colleges, what if we also provide some trainings for like how they can help their students in a way? Because the woman at my college, she's very nice, but she's kind of clueless on a lot of things, and you have to tell her exactly what to do and how to do it and talk her through like a lot.
It's gonna be 2 seconds. I know I talk a lot, but with all of these services, but I think it's more so for the council. How do we get this thing trickled down to the single mom, to the single dad? Many of us probably can Google this thing. But how do we get all of these services trickled down, to the home of a single mom who doesn't have time to go to the website, guys? See, I think that's the issue. A lot of parents, I had no idea that, what she's talking about existed. I had no idea. Once I found out about it, I was so, anyway, not too happy, I'm upset. Why I didn't know about this. So how do we get this thing trickled down to the people that need them? I think that's the
We
question.
are working this summer. Me and Ms. Julie Hagan were invited to the Department of Labor's Cape Youth Program. So I'll get with you later and we can discuss that. We can be working if you want to be on with our summit panel group. We more than likely have you there. And that's one of the things we're going to be discussing. So that's one of our main focuses for those in Louisiana.
I don't know what's going on in y'all's regions, but my community knows about Families Helping Families and uses like the resources a lot. Maybe those FHF centers might want to do a little more outreach or try and get more connected with our community, but that's not really a council thing. I feel like that's more up to the centers.
For
the transition piece, in our area, we've had great success going to linkage, meetings for juniors and seniors in high school. And yesterday we met like with parents, they come in twos and we meet with the students and say, you know, what do you want to do after high school? And we'd also have our LDE there, LRS would send a person, and we go through the whole school and make sure parents knew about resources. A lot of them didn't even know about the disability offices at all at colleges, but to make sure they don't get lost. And we had a lot of success that way. And also I'm part of the LCET, they have a transition work group through LDOE, and they're working on resources too for transition for parents and students.
Thank you, Nicole. So we do need a motion for these recommendations.
We need then we need, what they call the goal on substitute function. Wait, no, never mind.
Ms. Rosalind, go ahead.
Hey, I would emotion that one because that really sounds really good. Because I would go forward with it and all. I agree on that. So I would emotion it.
Vivian?
So about the, awareness and education about post-secondary opportunities and things available, what about educating just like your everyday professors as well? Because a lot of them don't know how to act about disabilities in general in the classroom. For instance, there's a lot of hate speech about disabled students and disabled people in general in one of my classes my first semester, and the teacher did not know how to address it or even realize it was an issue. So maybe also just figuring out and like training like all college staff on how to be an inclusive and safe environment for everyone. Is it doing?
So I don't see like healthcare providers being listed in this training stuff or education, because I feel like the pediatricians are gonna first identify, or should hopefully identify, developmental disability and say, these are the resources, right? So like I found out in the NICU, hey, reach out to Early Steps, and Early Steps said, hey, reach out to Florida parishes. So I feel like we need to include healthcare because they're kind of the ones that also need to be lumped into education and training, because they're the first hands on the kid, whether if it's a hospital system or a physician practice, they're the first ones to identify the developmental disability.
So I'm just, for clarification, that will probably be better suited in either goal 1 or goal 2, probably goal 2, because that's more of the community support. These are more focusing on education and employment trainings. So if you wanted to add that, like the planning committee would, you could just take that recommendation to the planning committee to have those additional, offer those additional educational opportunities.
Yeah. You still need a motion.
Well, I'm trying to get the last thing, the last concept. Vivian, can you clarify what you wanted for the college professors, staff, training?
Trainings around how to act around disabilities and then how to best help these students, like just in the classroom and day to day, and they don't seem to understand much around anything about disabilities. It's a foreign concept to them.
So I do need a motion from a council member to accept these recommendations.
I motion.
Second.
Mr. Eric motioned and Ms. Vivian second. Are there any discussions from council members regarding these recommendations? Any public comment? So the question is on accepting the following recommendations to our 5-year planning, on education and employment. We have to have a roll call vote. Stephanie?
A vote for yes is that you wanna accept these concepts for the 5-year planning. A vote for no is that you do not accept these concepts. Ms. Dooley?
Yes.
Mr. Dooley, yes. Dr. Baravecchio?
Yes.
Dr. Baravecchio, yes. Ms. Bayham?
Yes.
Ms. Bayham, yes. Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett, yes. Mr. Billings? Mr. Blunsky? Ms. Crane?
Yes.
Ms. Crane, yes. Mr. Ennis?
Yes.
Mr. Ennis, yes. Ms. Hagan?
Yes.
Ms. Hagan, yes. Ms. Hano?
Yes.
Ms. Hano, yes. Ms. Harmon?
Yes.
Ms. Harmon, yes. Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
Ms. Jordan, yes. Ms. Nguyen? Mr. Piante? Mr. Rocca?
Yes.
Mr. Rocca, yes. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, yes. Ms. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Stewart, yes. Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor, yes. Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. Washington, yes. Ms. Webb?
Yes.
Ms. Webb, yes. Dr. Wilson? Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. And Ms. Shu? Seventeen yeas, 0.
So the yeses have it and the motion is adopted. Thank you, council members. If there is no objection, the meeting will recess for 15 minutes. 10, I'm sorry. So, hearing none, the meeting is at recess. It is now 10:04. We will reconvene at 10:14.
Hello? Hello? Hello, somebody there?
Ms. Shu, we can hear you. We're just on break right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just talked to doctor 1 moment ago. So I'm still with my mom in the hospital. So I just only can temporarily to take a chance to listening. So
Okay.
I'm sorry for.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. No
Oh,
problem.
okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Hey, I'm actually trying to get a friend help, but if I can get a friend help, I maybe take a few hour leave, maybe 1 to 2 hour, so I can focus on the meetings. Um, just give me a hello, if somebody there. So give me a few time. Maybe a few minutes while I get my friend.
Surprising.
Hello. Turn it on. Thank you.
didn't catch me. Like, this thing on the one guy's TP.
The next, thank you for everyone who's back. The next item for business is the report from the Act 378 Subcommittee. The chair recognizes Ms. Julie Hagan for the report.
Thanks. The Act 378 Subcommittee met yesterday, and we do not have any recommendations for the council to consider. We did spend time reviewing fiscal year 25 second quarter data for programs within the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities and Behavioral Health and Aging and Adult Services. These reports can be found linked in our committee agenda on the council's meeting page if you would like to review. We had a few questions for Office of Behavioral Health from last quarter that they followed up on regarding consumer care resources and supported living programs. These questions centered on funds being used for school credit recovery and driver's education courses. There were also a couple districts and authorities or LGEs that expended all of their supported living funds in the first quarter. OBH informed everyone that this was due to the funding being utilized for urgent needs such as eviction prevention, utility assistance, etc. In OCDD's report, there was a concern about negative budget amount on the individual and family support and flexible family fund report. Ms. Brandy Croft explained that sometimes funding is moved from one program to the other to meet the needs of the family served. So this will show a budget reduction or a change in one area to the other area. We also noticed Central Louisiana Human Services District did not appropriate an amount equivalent to 9% of their state general fund to their DD programs as required by Act 73. Ms. Croft will follow up on this and report back next meeting. We also received an update on the State Personal Assistance Services or SPAS program that's overseen by the ARC of Louisiana. Ms. Kelly Monroe included a chart per the request of the council identifying how many individuals are currently receiving services and how many individuals have applied for other services. The committee was informed there is a total of 104 individuals currently on the waiting list to receive services. Ms. Monroe explained it would cost between $800,000 to $900,000 in state general funds, which equates to about $2.7 million if you include the federal match, to eliminate the waiting list. The committee expressed interest in wanting to advocate for additional funding for the SPAS program in future legislative sessions. And that concludes the report.
Thank you, Ms. Julie. Are there any questions from council members on the report? Any public comment? The report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item of business is the standing council members' reports. Please refer to the reports in your packet. Our first report is from the Office of Citizens with Developmental Disabilities. The chair recognizes Ms. Julie Foster Hagan for the report.
Our report is kind of on the, tannish color paper. We have a lot of information and data in here. I mentioned at the last meeting that we are working on updating our report to make it a little more concise and easier to read. I guess over the years, people have asked us to add things to the report and it's gotten longer and longer and longer. So we're still kind of tweaking that so that hopefully by the next quarter, we'll have more of an updated report. But there were a couple of things that I was asked to give updates on specifically that we weren't able to cover in the self-determination and community inclusion committee yesterday. So I'll hit some of those highlights and then happy to also take any questions from the report. Asked to give an update on the fiscal budget and how the DD community will be impacted. You know, we're still closely watching what happened from the tax session, what happened from revenue estimating conference and what that means, you know, for our overall state budget. I think there's, you know, there was discussion yesterday or even this morning. It seems as if things are going to be okay, but we still need to really wait until that, I think, March or April revenue estimating conference to see for sure. what that means. So at this point, we are still continuing to watch the budget. I've gotten asked a lot of questions. There was a presentation that was done at House Appropriations. Basically what happened is they asked us, if you lose $100 million, what will that look like? People have asked me if we have been asked to update those numbers. The answer to that is no. We've not been asked to go back to House Appropriations or, do any kind of exercises that would show a different number or how that might change. And that information really wasn't like a budget reduction, but more of a what if kind of situation. And so we've not updated, we've not been asked specifically to do any updates for that. I would say stay tuned closely during legislative session, because I think we'll see a lot in relation to the budget. It is likely that they won't really know revenue estimating what's going to happen with the money coming in as a result of all the tax changes until we're in the middle of session. And so a lot of times you might see the budget start one way, and then during session, they find out more clearly what the picture looks like for the money we'll have coming in. And a lot of times it's not even until the budget makes its way to the Senate side that we really know what that's going to be. So we are imagining that there'll be a lot of moving parts during the legislative session as it relates to our budget this year, which happens a lot. So it's not unusual for that to happen. But because there were so many changes with the tax session and whatnot, we anticipate even maybe more than usual with that kind of movement happening. We did do an increase. Well, this is back to home and community-based waiver services now. There was an increase effective October 1st for the night rate. And now when people receive services at night, it was at a reduced rate because staff were able to sleep during night hours. So there has now been a change where the night rate and the day rate are the same rate now. And our provider manuals have been updated to also include that staff can't sleep at night. And there are some expectations then around documentation of what's going on and what's happening commensurate with that rate increase. We have talked and we are continuing to work on some different things related to what we know is the direct support workforce challenge. We do continue to have conversations with some community colleges specifically around working on developing a curriculum that would result in some type of a certificate for direct support professionals who work with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. There are some already nationally recognized training programs that are online programs. So we're looking at that. We are looking at how we might be able to use some of our funding to give stipends for the workers to be able to pay for that training and then have that certification. And then what does that look like when you're providing services? Is there a way that we can make sure those folks get paid more or have access to a higher rate of pay because they have gone through that? We're continuing, again, to work with those community colleges so that we can try to get that rolled out. And we're using some of the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. So that's still in the works. It's also come to our attention, not from the Department of Health, but there may be some legislators who are interested in filing some bills this session around training for direct support professionals. So we'll keep a close eye on that as well. During our road shows and also during Developmental Disabilities Council, it came to our attention that even though we had started to provide incontinence supplies for people who were in home and community-based waivers, that folks were still having some trouble with that because they were only able to get, I guess, the cheapest types of incontinence supplies. And so we heard there were issues with leaking or folks with increased risk of decubitus because it wasn't the quality briefs that maybe people could have. And so we explored that. And what we found is for every service that we have, there's kind of a cap for what providers can bill for that service. And so the cap that the durable medical equipment providers were able to bill for only allowed people to get that cheapest rate. So we've been working with Medicaid and we're hopeful we can get it by April 1st, where we change that cap so that the DME provider where you get your incontinence supplies from has the ability, if all you need is the cheaper brief, then you bill the cheaper brief. But if there is a reason why you need something more expensive, then it can go higher so they can get that higher quality brief. We are trying to make sure people understand though, there's still a kind of a $2,500 cap. So if you're getting the higher cost brief, it may be that you're gonna hit that cap sooner than you would if by using the lower cost briefs, because the cap is on your total usage. But we're hopeful that we'll be able to have that, I guess, fix in place by April 1st so that people can then get that different incontinence supply. The Medicaid access rule was the next thing I was asked to update on. We are still very closely watching the access rule. There, to be honest, have been several folks with questions with the new presidential administration. Is the access rule going to stay? We can't answer that. We know that there's been a lot of executive orders, a lot of changes from things that were in place from the previous administration. I know I've gotten lots of questions about what it means for our population and for, I guess, LDH as a whole. A lot of it, we're still just trying to wrap our minds around. We don't really know just yet, and no one's been able to have the ability to analyze all of the executive orders and what they might mean. We do know things around diversity, equity, and inclusion probably have the most questions. Again, we don't know what that though means for folks. We will have to continue to watch. Some of the questions we got, apparently this week, the Medicaid payment portal was down. That is back up and going. So at least for immediate, we do know folks are able to get paid again. When that portal was down, that seemed to be the most, I guess. I'd be freaked out too. So the most freaked outness that was going on this week. The rest of it we're just gonna need time to really analyze. And, because Developmental Disabilities Council is a federal program, we'll continue to work closely with them as well. Like, do any of these executive orders have any impact as well? And again, I just think we don't know yet. I have been informed by the national associations that I participate with that in order for this administration to just say the access rule, to change anything in the access rule, it would require a legislative act. So it would have to be voted on in order to change any of those requirements. And I did a summary for the council, I think last time or the time before. So I'm not saying that wouldn't happen, but it can't just be done through an executive, and there couldn't be an executive order or the new head of CMS or HHS say, we're just not going to pursue this at all. It would take a legislative action. Again, that's my understanding from our national organizations. So again, we'll be closely watching that. And because of that, we're continuing full speed ahead to look at what do we need to do to be in compliance. And there's 7 or 8 different buckets of things that we're working on. And we'll continue to do that. It was requested of me that at the point we're ready for feedback, we go to the Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee for opportunities for feedback. So as we, reach that point, which we're not quite there yet, but as we reach that point, I'll be requesting that we add that agenda item to that committee so that we can look at that moving forward. And then the last thing I had before I'll take questions from folks is to provide an update on the rate study. So as you guys know, Milliman is, or I think no, we've talked about it in here, is doing what we call a rate study for all of our home and community-based waiver services. This is across OAAS and OCDD waiver services. They have, they've had a kickoff meeting. They have started to have focus group meetings. Unfortunately, we did have a focus group meeting that we blasted to make sure folks were aware of. for people receiving services and family members. And unfortunately, we only had 2 people participate in that meeting to give feedback on the rate study. So I did want to share that, if you would, as a, you know, a person receiving services or a family member, if there's anything you would like to share with Milliman for them to consider in the rate study, things that might be important for you guys, or that you want to make sure that they're thinking about as they're conducting the rate study, there is still an opportunity to send in comments to an email. And there's a dedicated email address that folks can send to. It's not just for families and people receiving services. If there are providers listening or advocate groups, this email is open for anyone who would like to share any kind of public comment or objective information they might have with Milliman in the rate study. And that is, and I can also share this with you guys, but it's LAHCBS@Milliman, which is MILLIMAN.com. LAHCBS@Milliman.com. And we'll again share that. So again, what they will do is they're taking information that they receive from the focus groups, from information we have about what the cost for providers are to provide services. But they are also doing other work like looking at Bureau of Labor and Statistics and what, you know, salary ranges people have kind of across the different states with a focus on southern states, looking at, you know, what the rates are in other states. They're looking at, you know, are there differences in cost to provide services in different geographical areas? Like some providers said, in order to get insurance, if I live in New Orleans, it's like double or triple what it's going to cost to have insurance if I live, say, in Alexandria or so. So they're trying to gather all the objective information they can about the actual cost of providing those home and community-based waiver services and looking at wage and rates for direct support workers. And we're still hopeful that that report will be out by, I think it's May-ish is when we're trying to make sure we get that report in. That will give us objective information. We've had a lot of conversation in the council around wages for direct support workers and kind of what part of the amount that providers receive has to go to just the cost of doing business versus what amount goes to the worker. So we're hopeful that this study is going to really give us some objective information so that we can have better conversations and more transparent conversations around any potential rate increases in the future. So I'll stop there, but also happy to take any questions.
Is any of this in the packet?
I don't know, I'll have to go look. I don't think it did. Okay, I can make sure that these things go in there in the future.
All right. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right.
Any other questions? Oh, someone.
Regarding the incontinence supplies, I was able to find a provider that can provide the incontinence supplies that the participants are requesting at the same cost that another provider cannot provide. And I just need to let you know, because I was having that issue with they were only able to provide certain supplies, so I was able to find, I did some research.
Yeah, that might be good if you don't mind sharing at some point with like for other
Right.
families to be able to know that.
Several
Yeah.
revisions and to switch over
To get
because
that.
some of them, a lot of families were complaining because the quality was just not what they were used to getting. And I mean, it was just one little cent more, 1 cent difference. And they found another product. They were like, we get this product, but this supplier could not provide it because it was 1 cent difference. And we found another supplier and they were able to provide it. And it makes a big difference. It really does in their quality of life. So.
Do we have any public comment?
Want to get your raise, Ms. Rosalind?
Ms. Rosalind?
Oh, okay. I was listening to it, but, this is what I want to know in that. Would that still be valid for a lot of people in the state of Louisiana to be providing all the help or not?
I'm sorry, Rosalind, I didn't understand that.
For what, oh, what was the top, on the topic that we was just discussing in
The
it?
incontinence supplies?
Yeah. All right, how many supplies are going out to all the, is this going to all the schools? Or going to like all the jobs or what? That's what I want to know.
Sure. So the service that I'm talking about was added for people who receive home and community-based waiver services. So if you are a person who receives home and community-based services and you have a medical need for using incontinence supplies or briefs, and I believe you have to have a doctor's order for that. Then it can go into your plan of care. And when it goes into your plan of care, then there's a way that you then work with a vendor to be able to supply that. If you live in an intermediate care facility or group home like you do, then that has to be provided, that has to be given by your provider because that's something you need. So, and I'm not sure about in the school system or if you're in the waiver service and you have a job, then you can get it that way. We also have some people who don't live in a group home and don't have waiver. And so we still do have the Act 378 program called Individual and Family Support. And they still are able, if there's people who need those incontinence supplies, but aren't in one of those, placements or receiving those services, they can still get incontinence supplies. And we know there's still some being provided through that Act 378 Individual and Family Support Program.
Because why I'm asking this is because of, I'm going to, a dental appointment today. Would that even cover that as well? Because, I know if you go into a dentist, that would cost like an arm and a leg as well. So that's what's making me wanting to ask this kind of question to y'all, because I wanted to really mention it, because I know the dentist appointments are like runs really high, like maybe 200 or, or 300. It's in that kind of category in that. And this is why I want to find out because, I don't know that, that kind of services, even for me being in that kind of field.
Sure. So people who receive home and community-based waiver services do have access to dental services. And so that's also something that for those folks, it goes through, we have 2 dental plans, managed care dental plans. So the home and community-based waiver participants can get services. And then for you living in the group home, your provider agency will cover that. And then there are some things that they can do as well in terms of helping them to get reimbursed for being able to cover those dental services for people in group homes or intermediate care facilities. So there's
because I'm living in Magnolia Community Services. I should have mentioned that, so my mistake on that. So could it ever help out with Magnolia Community Services with the dentist appointments with that kind of money?
yes, there is some additional funding that can happen for Magnolia and group home providers like Magnolia, yes. It works
Oh, okay.
differently than it does for people in waiver, but there is the ability, they're responsible for covering some of it, but the parts that they're not responsible for covering, then they can get reimbursed and bill and get paid for that.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's what I really wanted to ask because that was on my mind and I've been, wanting to ask that for the longest, it's, I'm kind of glad now I kind of mentioned it and everything to to y'all as a council, I'm part of, now since, I'm sitting through it for this year. So that way, I would know when I get back on fully on the council again.
Thank you, Ms. Rosalind.
Thank you. And speaking of it, I'll be leaving to go to the dentist in a couple of minutes.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right,
Any other public comments? Hearing none. Oh,
Wait, we have Miss Melinda Elliott, House President.
okay. Mr. Taylor?
I just got a question for you. Do you have a list of the things?
So that's something, Mr. Eric, that I spoke to the people that oversee the dental program, and they are currently working with both of the dental plans and they're calling each of the providers and asking them. So what they hope to do is to put together a list of here are the providers that are seeing the individuals in the waiver programs and living in the group homes. So that we can have, because I know that the list that's out there right now is the global list of all the dental providers that are contracted with the plan. And we have heard that sometimes you place calls to them and then they're not accepting patients. So what we're trying to get specifically is, I guess, a more up-to-date, accurate list so that if you do need to call and schedule an appointment for dental services, that you can use this list and hopefully we won't run into a lot of those same problems.
Because I get service, but the thing is, everywhere I go, it's an all weekend. Going stuff.
Yeah.
Insurance, so you have to be out of pocket.
Yeah, because there's two things that well, first of all, the dental provider or the dentist would have to be enrolled with Medicaid. They would have to be a Medicaid provider. And then what I just mentioned, what we're trying to look at is looking at all of those dentists that are contracted with the plans and making sure that they are willing and able to see those enrolled in our waiver programs or living in group homes.
Okay, and another thing that when I go to them, they be like, hey, Medicaid just don't feel enough for us to take the patients.
And that goes back to that first point. They have to be willing to enroll in the Medicaid program. Some dentists are and some dentists aren't.
Can you balance bill a Medicaid dental patient? So, for example, my son has private insurance and then he's got his Medicaid as secondary. Like, should that dentist send me a bill for what Medicaid should scoop up and I'm supposed to pay that?
They will cover, like every service has a rate that's on file, so they'll pay at least that rate. If there's a difference between that, I'm not sure. But I know that
Julie, do you know the answer?
Medicaid will pay at least the rate on file that we have for each of us.
Because like in healthcare, we can't balance bill a Medicaid patient. So like I can't, like my son has Blue Cross and he has Medicaid secondary. Ochsner can't say, oh, your balance is $65, like it ends at Medicaid and the parents don't receive a bill. So I'm wondering, is it the same for dental? Like Blue Cross takes it first, Medicaid second, the parents don't receive a bill. And that's what I'm saying, like, is it the same for dental because I just paid $1,200 for my son's dental visit because of its anesthesia and all of that?
I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you on that. It might be different because is Medicaid the only insurer for the dental services?
Well, this dentist doesn't take Medicaid.
Oh.
And I think that's the case for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you have to pay, you find another insurance that the dentist will take, or, and then pay the balance that Medicaid should scoop up, which is still significant.
I will check on that, but I'm pretty sure that Medicaid we can only pay towards services for a provider that's enrolled with Medicaid. So if they're not enrolled with Medicaid,
It's gonna be
I'm
out of
not sure.
network.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't
So,
know.
if there's any way you could get back with us with that information, because it is a good question.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
there are, I know more than some people would like to know that.
So just to clarify, the question is, if a provider is not enrolled with Medicaid, can Medicaid funds still be used to cover the cost?
Well,
of
if
part
they
of it?
are or if they aren't, the question is, should the parents ever receive a bill? The prime example, my son has, dental through Blue Cross or whatever our plan is, and then also has Medicaid as secondary, but yet I just paid $1,500 for the anesthesia and everything else. My son has Medicaid, it should stop there. I shouldn't have to pay a $1,500 balance when my son has two types of insurance. It doesn't happen in healthcare. Why would it happen in dental? But apparently it does, because this doctor's not in network. But if he was, would I have received a $1,500 bill?
I will check on that too, but typically, no, you should not receive a bill if it's covered by Medicaid and it's a Medicaid enrolled provider. They're supposed to cover, our fee to them is supposed to cover the complete cost of the service, if it's a covered service.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any other comments?
We have 2 hands raised. First hand is Ms. Melinda Elliott.
Ms. Melinda, please identify yourself, and you have 3 minutes, ma'am.
My name is Melinda Elliott. I have a 36-year-old daughter with a developmental disability. One of the things that I have run across just here lately is that she has now waiver services 24/7, but I have difficulty finding staff that will work. So the case manager is telling me that they have to reduce her budget, but I could get it back at any time. And I'm thinking that there has to be some kind of process maybe that I don't understand for her to get it back at any time, because I could hire somebody tomorrow. And then how long would I have to wait for the whole process to work its way through for her to have money in her budget to pay another worker? I guess I'm a bit confused because it feels like the hours are being taken away from her, even though I'm diligently trying to find somebody that could work with her. So that's my question. What's the process to be able to get the money back in the budget, and how long is that going to take?
Let me follow up with my staff. I'm not sure why the budget's having to be reduced to begin with, because I thought we had a caveat in there that if you were actively looking to find staff, that the budget shouldn't be reduced, that we would just be able to note that you were not using the hours because staff was not available, but let me follow up with my team on that, and I will make sure we get that answer back to the council. And you specifically, Melinda, I know how to reach you.
Yes, ma'am. Because, well, I had stopped working when the 6 months after the pandemic had ended. I prefer to just be her mother, but I'm fixing to change all of that so we can use some of these hours, which is a shame because I don't really want to. But if that's the way this works, that I have to use the hours, then I'm going to figure out a way to use them, you know? But yeah, please, if you would get back to me, I think I'm surely at the end of my 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Ms. Katie Furtado.
Ms. Katie, could you please introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Furtado. I'm a mother of 2 neurodivergent children, And I have a question kind of based on what the dentist question, that I've had providers where they're not in network, but it's, like a continuation of care question of it's more detrimental to my child if I find somebody in network for their particular services. So my question is there a way to petition to have like a compassionate consideration for in-network for continuation of care, so I'm not paying out of pocket?
Maybe I'll have to check on that. I apologize. I don't directly supervise the dental program, but I'll check on that for you. So, and I want to make sure I capture the question. So if a dentist is not enrolled with Medicaid, you're basically asking, is there any way to get money to the family to cover that care?
Well, any provider, but particularly, like if my son who's autistic has been working with this dentist and they finally, have a rapport, I prefer not to pay out of pocket and then switch, and I also prefer not to switch to somebody who's a provider in network. That is there a determination that you can see that it's in the best case of the patient and the enrollee and the family to consider any provider that they have that's medically necessary, whether it be OT, PT, food therapy, just like, and even my pediatrician is not, does not accept Medicaid, but I maintain that care because he's been seeing that pediatrician since he was born. So like, is there a super bill situation that I can send off to cover medically necessary appointments?
I'll follow up on that too as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comments? Hearing none, the report requires no action and we placed on file. The next item of business is the report of Department of Education. Is it? Oh, sorry. The report of the Bureau of Health Services Financing Medicaid. The chair recognizes Brian Bennett for the report.
Hello, everyone. And just to start off, because I know that some of you might not know, so technically we are called the Bureau of Health Services Financing. That's our name within LBH, but it's synonymous with Medicaid. So if you hear Bureau of Health Services Financing or BHSF, that's what that is. So my report is the blue report, and it's broken up into two general sections. So we have the news and updates at the beginning, and then some breakdown, some services and programs that I have broken down with some descriptions of each of those toward the end. But as far as news and update, two of the big things that we're working on right now are our justice involved initiatives. So we have both, and I think I touched on the first one in the last meeting, but we have what's called an 1115 demonstration waiver that we're working with CMS right now. And what that will do is it will allow us to provide coverage for those that are incarcerated up to 90 days prior to their release. So we're getting them enrolled with Medicaid to try to facilitate that transition for them re-entering the community after their release. This is, I believe there are over 20 states that have approved programs right now. But we are still working with CMS, and with the changeover at the federal level, it's kind of delayed a lot of the discussions with CMS. So I don't think we'll have approval on this program for at least a few months, if not longer than that, but we are continuing to work on that. Another similar program that we have in all 50 states are required to do this because this is required under the Consolidated Appropriations Act, is a program focusing on children, youth, and former foster care children. It's very similar, But this one only requires, it's a 30-day pre-release period, but we target those, we identify them and get them signed up for Medicaid. Really with the goal of we're making sure that everything that they had while incarcerated as far as treatments, medications, that when they come out, as soon as they come out, that those continue uninterrupted, so that it's really important to get them involved with Medicaid. That group will receive targeted case management 30 days before they're released, and then also as a follow-up 30 days after they're released from the facility. Our Medicaid annual report, if any of you would like to take a look at that, I linked it there, but you can also just Google it if you would like, just type in Louisiana Medicaid annual report. This is for fiscal year 23, so it is a little bit delayed. It does take us quite a while to compile everything. It's a very large report. So if you want to get any information on eligibility, enrollment numbers, what we're spending across our various programs, that's a great resource to go take a look at. We are looking to make some changes to this report over the next year. While it is a good report and it contains a lot of great data, it's a little hard to digest. It's well over 100 pages long. There's a lot of data in it. So one thing that we're looking at doing is we're hoping to streamline the report going forward so that it's a little bit easier to digest. And it's not so intimidating when you look at it. Right now, in the past, it's been used as an informational resource. But what we would like to do in the future is kind of just have it more as a snapshot of what the Medicaid program looks like year to year, so that it's a little bit more user-friendly with more tables, infographics, and charts. With our open enrollment period, so we have this every year. I mentioned this at the last meeting as well. It's just an opportunity every year for Medicaid members to switch one of their Healthy Louisiana plans or their dental plans. That wrapped up at the beginning of December. So we had, I didn't get an opportunity to put this in the report, but we had about 1.4 million people that were able to change their plans during this time period. That's the bulk of the Medicaid enrollment. And of that, we had about 33,000 that elected to change their plans, which was about 2.4% of the Medicaid population that switched their plans during that open enrollment period. The last two things, I mentioned this at the previous meeting as well. We are still working to update the LDH and Medicaid websites. We had previously planned a rollout in November, but that has been pushed back. We talked to our Bureau of Media and Communications. They coordinate a lot of the website on the department level. And that's been pushed back to March. But again, the intent of the redesign of the website is to make it more user-friendly, more consumer-driven, so that when the general public visits the website, hopefully they can more easily find what they're looking for. And finally, the Transforming Maternal Health or TEMA grant. During the last meeting, I said that we had applied for that grant, Medicaid with the Office of Women's Health. And we were one of the 15 states selected to participate in that. So we're working to roll that out, planning some of the programming on what that will look like. But we're still really in the early stages of that. One of the other things that I wanted to follow up on that Julie said earlier related to the access rule. Most of the provisions of the access rule are kind of further out. We have a few more years to work on those, but one of the first things that will be coming due is they have a requirement for the state to create a beneficiary advisory council. So, or you might see it labeled as a BAC, a BAC. So this will be new to Medicaid. It will serve as a subcommittee to our current Medicaid Advisory Council. And the reason this is important is because up to now, our Medicaid Advisory Council has largely just focused on your typical healthcare services. So what the Beneficiary Advisory Council will do will kind of include a component for us to look at home and community-based services. So we will be asking, we're going to put out a call for applications for anybody that's interested in joining that council. I think we're planning, subject to change, but I think we're planning to have our first meeting this summer. So once that application is finalized, we're going to share it with Julie, Gary, and the Office of Behavioral Health and try to get it around to all of our stakeholders so that anybody that's interested in serving on that has an opportunity to do so. Specifically, we're looking for Medicaid participants, receiving home and community-based services, family members, and even direct support workers to serve on that council. That's all as far as updates. The remainder of the report is just data on some of the various programs that we've updated since the last quarter. I'll take any questions. Y'all have any?
Any questions?
We report.
Any, hearing none, the report requires no action and will be placed on file. Ms. Roslin, please, introduce yourself and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Rosalind Heimel. Like you was saying about self, the very last one, it's like for self, what was the last part of it when you were saying about the self whatnot? And that, and how does that really work for people with that kind of disability? And all, because I know I have a disability and also I have like a job off campus that I have. Would that kind of services that you was talking about, would that service would ever help me in that kind of way over at the Cafe Latida? And that's what I want to know.
Ms. Roslin, I think that the last thing I talked about was the new Beneficiary Advisory Council that we're creating. And that's related to the access rule. So it's not really a service, but it will be a group of people that will be putting together to look at issues that are important to Medicaid community-based services.
Well, yeah, that's also what I got too, as well. So since that is what, you know, what you're saying is, would it affect my job where I'm at too? You know, that's my concerns and all, because, you know, if, you know, would it, if I make so much money on it, would I ever lose that? So, you know, that kind of money.
So this council shouldn't affect your job, Rosalind. If you participate, it shouldn't, if you choose to participate, it shouldn't affect that. The one thing that we are trying to work out, because we do realize that people do have jobs. So the times that we'll meet for the council, because we do want as many people to participate and be active participants in it. So we are going to be looking at the times that we meet, because we don't want to ask people, or at least to the extent possible, to interrupt their lives to attend this council, because we do realize that you know, people go to school, they have jobs. So that's something that we are keeping in mind right now, and we want to make sure we take into consideration when we're, designing the meeting schedule.
Yeah, because I've been there for 2 years and I have like a little fear that I might lose that kind of benefits and that with that kind of disability. I mean, with that kind of, with Medicare and Medicaid, and everything. And I don't want to lose it at all. That's my fear that I have.
Thank you, Ms. Rosalind. Do we have any other public announcements? Hearing none, the report requires no action and we placed on file. The next item of business is the report from the Disability Rights of Louisiana. The chair recognizes Mr. Torrey Rocco for the report.
Thank you very much. First, program updates. Our Applying Test Systems program, which helps people with disabilities who are receiving or applying for services from LRS. Currently assisting 44 people, in public training, and maintaining rehabilitation services. Our community living busing program, where we have advocates, people who have just developmental disabilities and live in state licensed privately owned group homes. Between July 1st and September 30th, and I apologize for the numbers. I get this, like I said before, I get this report internally, and so there's always a lag in the numbers that I have because the report 70 years to our board of directors, so we always have a little lag. Well, we usually have a little lag in a few months, but these numbers are for July 1st through September 30th, 2024. The community housing program served 3,906 people with developmental disabilities, group homes. They completed 401 visits, 2,290 resident contacts, and documented 163 complaints. In our supported living advocacy program, which serves individuals with developmental disabilities who are receiving OCD waivers and supports and living in their homes and communities. Between July 1st and September 30th, served 36 individuals, and some of the actions we took included assisting a client in contacting the local crisis unit during a meeting to address public health issues. We assisted clients with provider issues, including staffing and transportation. Advocated for clients with problems in their living conditions, such as sewage leaking into their apartment and updating a lease. Assisted a client with confirming Medicaid enrollment. Advocated for apartment building management to make necessary repairs. Advocating for clients to get a waiver from the road to now waiver, which will give the client more support hours. In our financial access solution and resources program, which provides financial coaching and case management to formerly incarcerated people with disabilities and overcoming employment and resource barriers. Between July 1st and September 30th of 2024, in the Old Parish area, helped 23 residents that included access to healthcare services, receiving benefits costs, enrolling a minor child in school, paying people, posting a state ID, negotiating wages. Of these clients that we serve, 4 or 70% have reduced their debt by a collective total of $21,000. Working of them, or over half, and increased their income by a collective total of over $11,000 per month. And 13 of them, or over half, were employed during this period. 10 of them having maintained their employment for over 10 years. Example of a recent success we had applied for web. Our SciLab program, our supporting independent advocacy program, was contacted by a family member of a man on a new opportunities waiver who'd been experiencing conflict with his provider. Family documented piles of dirty laundry and spoiled food in the apartment. Also documented the sloppy administration of medication. The upshot is that we helped the client switch to a new support and coordination agency and the provider agency that they're in the circle.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Ms. Roslyn, and you have 3 minutes. Rosalind? Can you hear us? Ms. Rosalind? Right? She click off? Oh, okay. This report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item for business is the Department of Education. The chair recognizes Meredith Jordan for the report.
Thank you. I don't know that I've ever made it before noon. Effective and efficient. So I want to start my report just with a bit of data and celebration that came out just yesterday. And we talked about it a lot in the Education Employment Committee, so I'm going to try to be brief. But yesterday we joined the governor's office for a press conference on the latest national report card that came out based on the National Assessment of Education that happened in 2024. This is an assessment given every 2 years to all students, including our students with disabilities. And what it is supposed to, it is a national gold standard for ranking states and telling states and our stakeholders, our parents, our communities, how are we stacking up against other states across the country. And again, for the second cycle of this report, Louisiana made significant gains. And there's something really special about this particular release that's really close to my heart. And I know every single person here. So it was only fitting yesterday that I wasn't at that press conference. However, we got to celebrate that with our committee yesterday. And that is our students with disabilities in Louisiana outgrew other students with disabilities across the nation. This is remarkable. This doesn't happen. And I want you all to know, whether you're service providers, educators, I think we all got a little teary-eyed yesterday, parents, individuals, it tells us that we have held our students to far too low expectations for too long. And yesterday during committee, I didn't get to share this because, right, all of this data is embargoed. I hear it when you all hear it, basically. But when I looked at some of the data specific last night, not only did we outperform both achievement and growth, all students with disabilities across the nation. On average, across the nation, students with disabilities declined 4%. Continue to hear that across the nation. Students with disabilities just aren't making progress. They aren't making progress. But in Louisiana, on this assessment, our kids grew 4%. So we didn't just barely, right? We made significant gains. And so that I just want to celebrate with you all, tell you thank you, congratulations. Keep pushing me. I push pretty hard. And I know we're going to continue to make great progress in our state. It definitely takes all of us. And so I wanted to share that here. I'm in the middle of federal reporting. I told them yesterday, I see more green on my federal reporting this year than I've ever seen, which tells us that, number one, we know what to do. We know how to support these students. We have amazing people, educators, stakeholders, families, kids to support. And we really believe in that in our state. And so I'll be excited to share once that federal reporting is complete, a little bit more about that report with you all, and I'll bring that back here. So to get back to my report, you all know this time of year we are preparing for
our huge Teacher Leader Summit, this June. Last year, we had record attendance. We normally average about 4,000 educators, leaders across the state. Last year, we had 7,000 educators, leaders across the state. And when I speak to other state leaders nationally, they're always surprised that we get that many people in one location from our school systems every year. And so it's a real opportunity for us to provide some new learning, provide some continued learning on what we know works, and get our educators and our leaders really pumped about the next school year. And so we're preparing for that right now. We do have our external presenter application open. I know there are a lot of folks who listen into this and who attend here who always submit presentations. So I wanted to share that. It's quick, it ends tomorrow. So we released it about a month ago, but just wanted to share that here. We're prepping for this. You all know, if you know me, you've listened to me, we're going to have a lot of sessions on inclusive practices. We've actually, and listening to you all, listening to stakeholders, we're going to have sessions around supporting and building capacity for supporting students with autism, challenging behaviors, right? All those things connected to the audit and what we heard yesterday. Providing high quality teaching and learning and high quality access to curriculum for even our kids with significant cognitive disabilities, right? So a lot of really great sessions. We kind of all joke at the department, we really could change the title and just call it a Diverse Learner Summit. Because those are the kids that everybody wants to come and learn. How do I support them better? How do we improve outcomes? And so we're really excited for Teacher Leader coming up. My next update, I'll be asking you all for input. I always send this survey directly to the council when we release it. It's going to release in the next week or so. Every year, we prepare an annual application to receive those federal funds for IDA that we both flow through to our schools. There's also a state set aside portion for state activities. And so it's not due until May. I start very early. This is not Meredith's application. This is our stakeholders application. What do our stakeholders, what I'm looking for is what funding opportunities, kind of like we do here on the council, what funding opportunities do we want to continue to fund? What are some new things that our stakeholders want to see us spend our state dollars on to help support special education in our state? So I'll send the link to this public survey directly to the council to share with you all, for both you all to complete and submit, but to also help me share pretty widely. We'll use social media, our newsletters, all of our outlets as well, and I certainly appreciate the support that you all give to that. So we'll release that very, very soon. And we usually give a pretty good window, because I like to start early. At least 30-day window to help get it out there and get that input back. I normally get hundreds of responses, and they are seriously helpful for me in creating this application. I personally read every single one. I have an open-ended question on there. Like I'll ask some ranked items. Do you believe we should continue to do these things? And then I'll say, tell me anything else. And I read every single one. Because it's important for me to generate our stakeholders application for these funds. This is exciting and new. We are have released a set of professional learning modules, and this has come from stakeholder discussions. It's come from resulting from some of the things from some of our audit reports, talking to parents. Even our LEAs I've had email me, and I always think, because I'm highly instructionally focused, and I know compliance we have to have it. It's a baseline. It supports improving results. But I have to remind myself, we have turnover. We have some basic compliance professional development that has to continue to keep that capacity. And so we have partnered with LRP. It's not an acronym or alphabet. It just is that. It doesn't stand for anything. And this is a national legal organization. They put out a lot of professional learning. We have provided access to 17 different topics. They are compliance in nature. And so a couple of examples here, you'll see the one on, what are considerations for seclusion and restraint? So a little bit of responsive action to that audit report and trying to get some development out there, awareness. IEP compliance, what should the makeup of an IEP team be? How do you conduct a compliant IEP meeting? Evaluations, reevaluations, how to write measurable annual goals. What are the legal requirements, practical requirements? Functional behavior assessments. We have talked about, I hear a lot from stakeholders. I hear a lot from LEAs, and we've really heard this since the pandemic around supporting challenging behavior in schools. So we have a couple of modules that will focus on conducting functional behavior assessments, when to do that, writing behavior intervention plans, strategies for doing that, extended school year. What does that mean? How do you qualify? What should be considered at IEP meetings to make that decision? Behavior in students with autism, again, something that we hear quite a bit. And of course, dispute resolution, some additional trainings there. And so I've already had LEAs and special education leaders email me and say, thank you for this. I can do some monthly learning opportunities with my special education staff, my regular education staff, IEP teams, pupil appraisal, and have some of these learnings that were happening that we have all year long. So we're excited for that release and to offer that support to our school systems. A quick SEEP update. Our last meeting was in December. Our January meeting, as you all know, was canceled due to the state office closures for the Snowmageddon days. We are working to see the feasibility, availability to reschedule that meeting, or do we just move forward, move those agenda items to March? I feel like March is going to be here any day now, honestly, at the rate things move. We're required by federal law to meet 4 times. We typically annually meet 5. I've always done it because I need that many times, but now I think I'm glad we do 5 when we have things like this, perhaps. So we wouldn't have to reschedule, but that's something that we're talking with the panel about availability. Can we find space to meet? But we will have another meeting. Our next scheduled meeting is March the 26th. They are set to take up a discussion much like we did yesterday on the seclusion and restraint audit. We will also talk funding, get their input on our funding priorities as well at that meeting. But I'll keep you all posted if we do decide to schedule an additional meeting before March 26th. I shared a little blurb in here. I won't read all of it about the fall reading report. I feel like, I generated this, of course, before yesterday, but now you kind of see how all these things are tied together and the progress that we're making on literacy and reading, even for our students with disabilities, and how all these assessments are tying together. And we're seeing so much progress in our state. What I will point you to is that last paragraph. We have been featured, and I think it's a really great recognition to us. It is a nod to all of the work that we've been doing around true inclusive practices. I say this all the time. I think, 4 or 5 years ago, we were saying we were doing inclusion, and we weren't, right? And I think now this is why we're seeing the results we're seeing. But we were featured in 2 OSIP guidance documents about our inclusive practices and the work that we're doing. I have, after yesterday, of course, I said this to our committee, folks calling, what are you doing? What are you doing in Louisiana? We have the Council for Exceptional Children. Some of you might be familiar with that national organization. They want to come and do a feature film on Louisiana. And I think that's great because I think we should be bragging on our students and our families and the work that we're all involved in. So I wanted to show you those and point you to that as recognition for the work you're doing. And then ending with just a couple of events coming up. I know we have a lot of events, but a couple of things that I thought maybe some of our parents might be interested in. And I know we have Families Helping Families representatives here, and they do hundreds of things. But just some things I wanted to bring to your attention connected to a lot of concerns we hear, right? How to manage behavior strategies. And one of them is specifically around ADD, ADHD, right? Which we see a lot of, and you see it on the rise sometimes. So if that's something you're interested in, you can find information there when you can click on it to register. We have a couple of things coming up for educators, creating adapted books for every learner. This is a big deal for me. And we're going to be doing a lot of this at Teacher Leader Summit because a lot of our students with disabilities, we've said this before, are identified for special education because they struggle to learn how to read or fail to ever learn how to read. And so knowing that literacy really is a serious backbone for our kids, wanted to share this. We're going to do a lot of this at Teacher Leader Summit. And even for nonverbal students with significant cognitive disabilities, what are the best strategies to teach those students how to read? Create that independence, right? Giving them those communication access pieces. And then we're doing a little bit more on functional vision assessment. We've been doing that for a couple of years ever since we updated our criteria to capture a little bit more students, even students who may wear glasses. They may have some vision that starts out strong in the morning, but by the end of the school day, their vision is tired, right? And we have ways now that we can identify those students and support them. And so helping our LEAs understand how to give functional vision assessments, how to really look at those students in their educational environment and provide them the supports that they need. So I wanted to share that one too. And I'll stop there. We can have some discussion. All right, so
Any questions from there?
I have four. What is LAAEM?
That's the Louisiana Accessible Educational Materials Center. So they provide all the Braille resources for all of our LEAs across the state. They also have a lending library of assistive technology devices. They will help LEAs. They'll go and do student assessments, observe a student and see, okay, what devices might best help that student access their learning. Good question.
A question. Is the state looking to streamline paperwork for IEPs and SPED and so that way it's the same from parish to parish due to monitoring and compliance issues and minimizing errors? That would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, so you're right. Depending from LEA to LEA, there are different procedures, right? So the law is the law, state policy is state policy. You have your procedural safeguards, but LEAs generate their own documents, their own forms. I'll tell you, Christy, that's not something that we're working on right now, but certainly not something we can't.
Because it's so vastly different. And if it was more streamlined, they would have less errors. Monitoring would be so much easier. And it's just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that, we haven't really spent a lot. We have an electronic special education reporting system that we collect a lot of documentation in, but that's one of my questions on my public funding survey is, are there spending opportunities to reduce any paperwork burden for educators? Because I believe that's important. But it is a complex world in special education of a lot of documentation and form.
Yeah, it's about 40 pages per child, depending on if they're in elementary and more if they're in high school.
Yeah.
We waste a lot of trees.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Any other? Okay. Hearing none, the report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next order of business, thank you, Mr. Meredith, is the report, the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs. The chair recognizes Jamar Ennis.
All right, thank you. And I promise we're gonna have an early lunch. And then we give this report and give it briefly. I want to start off by saying that, we're very excited to announce that we're gonna have an event during the legislative session. I think it's gonna be a very meaningful one, a very important one, as Disability Awareness Day at the Capitol. We're partnering with the Split Second Foundation in New Orleans, who graciously has accepted to fund this event. So it's going to be a unique opportunity. This is the first time this office, the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs, has done something like this. So I think we're breaking some barriers here. So the premise is to have, and by the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but the DD Council's invited. So is the other disability-centric nonprofits, agencies, to come out, set up tables, interact with legislators. So we're going to situate the events primarily going to be in the rotunda, but also there's going to be a podium at the Capitol, at the front steps of the Capitol. We're going to invite legislators. So we want our legislative body to see the great work that our organizations around the state are doing. Oftentimes they're not getting enough attention because what's happening in this session, there's a fiscal, this is fiscal year, which is the kind of the second thing I want to talk about for our legislative session that is on the horizon in April. So we want to have a meaningful opportunity for groups to actually see legislators, meet with them, tell them why they're important, why we exist, how we can be helpful to constituents in your area. So it's the first time we've done it. We're very excited about this program. It's on the governor's calendar. So we want, we really want this first, hopefully it's an impactful event. We can do this every year. And we just got the logo while Meredith was reporting. I just got the email. So we're very excited about that. I'm happy to share this first thing on my report. The next topic is the legislative session. So we're checking for anything pre-file, no activities yet. We appreciate that this council has submitted their legislative priorities, which is important for us because it allows us to kind of get to work to at least tell our administration that, hey, these are some of the concerns that one of your councils have. So let's sit this meeting table, we'll talk about solutions. So if there's any legislative priorities, looking across the room, Disability Rights Louisiana, if there's any groups that have these things, please let me know so we can at least talk and try to work on solutions, or and so at least I can make some efforts to set up meetings and get leadership involved because that's what we're here for. I included some links to the House and Senate bulletins, the House and Senate bulletins. There's a lot of good information there. It's what I personally use to see what's going on, to check like pre-file dates, to check for when things are due. It really it is really important for, I guess, have that internal knowledge of how they're moving, where things are going to be, where things can be found. So there's a lot of valuable information even at this early hour, this early prelude to legislative session. So I just want to put that information there. also another program that we will have this year, we haven't came up with a date yet, but the Mayor's Initiative. I think it's gonna be a very powerful thing here where we're gonna invite some mayors, local municipalities to come to the table and just figure out ways how we could make them stronger, to empower them to solve local issues. And here's some of the topics that we just want to start off with. So the idea is to have the ones that are already established, and hopefully next year we can just invite other groups, other mayors, other leaders who want to build something in their local communities to talk about, resolve local disability-centric issues. So the topics that we have on slate is emergency preparedness, networking, ADA accessibility, open meeting laws. That's a big one because we've been finding out that a lot of the mayor's councils aren't necessarily adhering to open meeting laws in terms of interpreters, notices. They can use the Act 393 exception if they do all their paperwork. So there are tools that they can use to make their good intentions legal and accessible. And another big one is transportation. Obviously, there's transportation issues going on everywhere. So I think some mayors' initiatives, they have a better handle on addressing transportation issues better than other local regions. So we just want to have these groups kind of share what they're doing, what's working, what's not working, and try to do the best we can to bring like minds to the table to be positive and solve concerns. We're also preparing for our GOTA conference early, so we want to try to get as many solicitations. And the way we like to do our conferences, we like to kind of get a temperature check on what issues or what people want to hear. So I guess it's ever evolving because I guess the way we've done the GOTA conference, once it was an ADA conference. Now it's kind of evolved to handle more sub issues. So it's like the equivalent of sticking our toe in the water just to check the temperature. Now we're drowning in it. So we're here, and now that there's multiple topics, we want to make sure that it's a product that people want to participate in and come to and get information from. And lastly, we're making significant efforts to address our disability trust fund, which funds our office to continue to build programs, and the programs that you know, that you love, including but not limited to GOTA Awards, Art Contest, GOTA Conference, this Mayor's Initiative that we want to do, Disability Rights Day at the Capitol, and there's some other things that we want to do that I know that would be a great benefit to the state. However, our funds are not what they should be. And it's our intention to kind of figure out ways to try to hold the responsible parties that are supposed to pay into this to pay into it. So we're funded by, so 2/3 of disability violations such as parking. Parking's a big one. There's each parish shares are supposed to remit 2/3 of those violations to our budget. On the wide scale, that hasn't been happening. So that's how our office is funded. That's how we are funded to do programs. And so obviously the more we get, the more things you'll see from us. So we're just, that's one of the things we're going to take strong action towards to make sure that we get what we're supposed to get as an agency. So that's the long and short end of the report. I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions, Ms. Cheryl?
Hi, do you have the date for the, Disability Awareness Day at the Capitol?
Yes, I do, and I apologize. It is June the 2nd.
June 2nd.
June 2nd. We were aiming for a time in May, but there's a lot of lobbyists and a lot of people who have who soak those days up to buy lunches and so yeah, but at least we were able to get to some point where the actual session is going on. So we want people to reach out to their legislators and say, look, our group is going to be there. We're from your area. Let's link up. Let's talk about what we're doing, how you can support us. So yeah, we're really excited about this event because it's bridging obviously the Governor's Advisory Council to our office and to the likes of groups like the DD Council, Families Helping Families. So we want this to have a statewide appeal to them that just should come to the Capitol, make your presence, and hopefully we can do this every year.
That was the same question.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay, in Britain, in Jamar, and probably Bambi can collectively answer, but something caught my mind. When you were talking about legislative session, do we have a date that I'm saying we, but all agencies have to submit our final agenda to your office?
There's no requirements. I think it's more like of a courtesy. So I think the DD Council, and they've pretty much been taking the lead on, from what I've seen, they're generally the first group to actually get something out. The Disability Rights Louisiana, they get their stuff out. Louisiana Fair Action Council, so I think the sooner the better, because it's always, I guess it's always energy that you're creating.
Okay.
Because you're giving more time on your chess game to bring attention to issues, to let us know about it. Because I guess windows close whenever it's closer to session, because for me, just being on the other side of this, trying to get legislators time and get policymakers time, whether you're in state government, people who are actually coming to the table, getting their time, it's more of a premium. So anytime you get things out early, it's always you give your best, you give yourself a best shot for results, or at least to get things done. So I guess DD Council has been a great example of that. I can't speak for what other agencies, but to answer your question there, we don't have any timelines. We just like to know what's going on so we can do our jobs and make it known to our bosses.
So when you have your finalized, are you still the legislation man?
It's all of our office.
Okay, when you, other than looking for the round tables in FHF for, sorry, Nicole, for whatever they do with you, do you have, in this is in general, but do you have the major agenda to anyone outside of in any official capacity?
No.
Okay.
Y'all vote on the agenda and we start working. I will say the agenda is always very fluid though. Fact sheet can change all throughout session. One roundtable PowerPoint maybe presented today this way and tomorrow it's a different way.
Right.
Everything is always changing. In fact, over the last, I think we talked about it yesterday, 5 years or so, y'all's agenda kept changing up until session started, so it was always.
Correct. Okay, I was just curious about a deadline. I know the roundtable obviously, but other than roundtables.
Yeah, no, we don't report to anyone. We try to keep things timely so we can move with some of those advocacy activities that y'all have asked LaCan to do. We don't have any official deadlines for anything. We don't have to report what we're doing to anyone other than the feds at the end of the year. We let them know how everything we do relates to our plan.
Okay.
We don't have to notify anyone of what we're advocating for or why we're doing it.
I think y'all's brain never just goes down the tunnel and you're like, man, it's not that complicated. Okay.
Anybody else, any other public comment? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, the report requires no action, we place on file. The next item for business is the report of Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs. The chair recognizes Ms. Sherry Crane for the report.
It's ready for after lunch, but okay. So I'm on the yellow paper. Just for the people that are new, we kind of just give like a brief introduction of like what type of services we provide, what kind of programs we have. So I'm gonna skip to the second page in the middle, which is always pretty much a hot topic for our office. Since we handle all the elderly protective services, we just kind of give some data around what types of reports we receive. And this is just the totals from July 1 of 24 through December 2024. And it's always interesting to see it does not change very much as far as the ranking. Self-neglect and financial exploitation are usually the two highest categories of reports of abuse. New people, I talked about this several meetings ago and continue to talk about it. Last year at session, we were able to get additional positions for additional investigators that go out and investigate these reports. So we are on the tail end of hiring those 17 positions. It has not been an easy road to do. I tell our staff that is currently on board now that has been doing this type of service, God bless you every day, because there's no way I could do what you do for the little money that you make. And we always have a high turnover. And it is because not just the pay, but it is just the nature of the job. So it is very tiresome and enduring. So we have seen the caseload not go down, but the burnout, we've heard from staff because we have asked them since we've had the additional positions, okay, what has changed? What has helped you? Has the caseload reduction helped? How has it helped? You know, those kind of things. So we do get that feedback from them. So that's been great to show that, you know, the additional positions were very much needed. We were on a high case level nationally. We were doing, each investigator had over 55 cases and most nationally were only 30. So that kind of helped us get the power to get the additional positions as well. Kind of talked about the aging and disability resource centers at the bottom. Kind of like the lady was saying with Families Helping Families, you know, a lot of people don't know about it, but we do have 8 resource centers around the state that you can call our office, tell us what parish you live in, we'll give you the resource center, and they have all the resources that are available in that area They do change from regions because we do have local organizations or local companies such as a certain Home Depot in one area will have volunteers through Home Depot that on the weekends they will go and they will build ramps or steps or whatever needs to be. But they might do it in the South region and not in the North region. So it is catered to each individual region. So most people do not know about that, but there's the number there that they can contact. The next thing is our MIPA, which is our Medicare Improvement for Patients and Providers Act. Open enrollment is every year, same time, starts in the middle of October, ends at the beginning of December. We have 64 councils on aging. There's one in every parish. Not all of them provide this service, so you would have to have the person or their caregiver call and see if we do provide that in that area. And what they do is they really look at the constituents' prior health plan, and they can look at it from last year and compare it to the new year and kind of give the guidance of, okay, this is what you had last year. Now you are eligible to have this, this, and this, whether it's the dental, vision, or whatever. So they kind of go through that, and then they help those that qualify for low income subsidy, and then the Medicare Savings Plan, which is a big one. We're right now in the middle, Meredith and Julie with federal reporting. We're in the middle of our federal reporting, so I don't have all the data yet, but we put out a report. It is from our executive board on aging that says how much we spend on medicines and how much it saves per person. So that'll be shared at the next meeting. It's very interesting to see for every dollar we spend, how much we can actually save using that program. That's just a little information there. Recent news, we are in the process of hosting a sub-grantee conference, which is really for our directors of each council on aging. Like anywhere else, they have a high turnover, so we have new directors coming in, older ones retiring, that kind of thing. So that will be April 1st through the 3rd at the Crown Plaza. We also continue working on developing our changes in our policies and procedures. We are an agency that's a little bit different than most agencies, as other agencies provide services directly to the constituents. However, we do not. We really oversee the councils on aging, and we contract with them to provide all the services. So we kind of like a monitoring agency. With that being said, we are actually governed by the Older Americans Act, which is through the Administration of Community Living. And they just updated last year their guidelines and federal regulations. And so they have not changed that in over 30 years. So it was a huge undertaking. They finally finalized it last year. So now we have until October of this year to be in compliance with all those changes. So we're in the process of going through and updating our policy and procedure manual so that the directors know now what they have to change. And a huge change is to the meals. During COVID, you couldn't have the congregate setting where people could come into the senior center and eat in a congregate setting because of COVID and the spread of it. So we kind of made some adaptations, and we started the grab and go meals where they could just drive through a line, grab a meal and go. They wouldn't have to get out their vehicle. So we have been in collaboration with ACL. So now when they did their changes to the regulations, now they have allowed the grab and goes to count as a meal. However, it cannot be more than 20% of the council's budget, as well as our budget overall. So we have to put some, things in place to ensure that we don't go over that 20%. So we would have to pay back the maintenance fix. So that's a huge undertaking that we're going on. And our next meeting for our executive board on aging is February 19th. It is in the Gavels building. You can go on our website and you can see if you would like to attend that. And then of course, we continue to work with MDAC on a continual basis on any disasters that could occur. Hurricane snow now, I think is going to be one that we add. Didn't realize that was going to be something new we needed to add, but we continue to collaborate. And that's all I have.
Are there any questions from council members on the report? Any public comment? Ms. Rosalind, please introduce yourself and have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Rosalind Heimel. My concern that, like you were saying, with the meals and everything? And also, what is EMDAC really stand for? Because, you know, I'm trying to look, I am a little lost on it. So can you give me a little bit more information up on that? Because I am interested up on that as well and everything. And also, can you kind of put this into my packet so I could also kind of read up on it? Because something like this caught my interest for what you was really talking about.
Yes, ma'am. Robin, Rosalind, it is gonna be in your packet. It's actually in one of my agency reports, and it's also online. So, and MDAC is really for the Emergency Management for Disabled and Aged Coalition. So after Katrina, you know, we really didn't have a lot of things in place. And so this coalition was developed with state agencies as well as, organizations such as, Sacred Heart, Jamar is part of it with the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs. I attended, so it's a big collaboration of support and response recovery groups. And so you can actually go on the website of the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs and find out more detailed information about it.
Because like I'm saying, I'm very interested and I still want to know a little bit more details about it. So how can I reach out to something like this? And that even because I am also speaking out for Magnolia Community Services with something like this. So how can I go about something like this, even for the services for Magnolia Community Services?
Hi.
Hey,
How are you?
hi.
I love your Mardi Gras.
And that's what it is.
Okay, Mr.
Are you on the phone with somebody?
I'm on account.
Hi, Rosa.
I'm on a TV account.
Hi, Rosa. This is Jamar with the Governor's Office. If you could send me an email, I'll gladly add you to the listserv for MDAC. So you could actually participate in MDAC meetings when they occur. And also, if there's a program relative to a training or something that faction sponsored by MDAC, you'll see that in our newsletter as well. So I make sure that you're added to both. And I'll give you my email address if someone could type it into the comment section. It's my first name, Jamar, Jamar .Ennis, ENNIS @LA.gov.
Any other questions or comments?
Send it to me too.
Done? Okay. If there is no objection, the report requires no action based on file. If there is no objection, the meeting will recess for lunch. Objection? Hearing none, the meeting is at recess. It is now 12 o'clock on the dot. We will reconvene